What is going on out there, my Jets family? I want to thank you guys for tuning in to a special edition of the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. As you guys know, I wanted to be with you Wednesday evening when the news broke. I mean, that's the best time to talk about it, right? Like right in the moment. Like, oh my God, Zach's been benched. Mike White's the quarterback. What does this mean? So much news. As you guys know, shit happened. Optimum kind of let me down. I wanted to be live with you guys. I appreciate all your guys' patience. You guys were there like, I'll push it back half an hour. And then I mentioned on Twitter, I pushed it back like another hour. I was like, okay, I was telling Jeremy, I was joking about it. Like, we'll give him an hour and a half to, to figure it out, like what's going on. And that didn't work. So I do apologize to you guys, but we're going to bring you the episode this evening. Again, appreciate you guys being here. And as you guys can see, I got an awesome, awesome guest with me, Mr. Jeremy Cravat from Jets Chaos. What is going on, my brother?
What's up? Hanging out here in California, 65 degrees as the
Trying
high.
to rub it in.
So I just got back from the dog park, took my dog out there. We hung out, tried to get some fresh air. But it's weird because it starts like 38 degrees here in the morning, slowly climbs up to 65, and then right away starts going down again and getting cold. So it's an interesting weather pattern here in the winter.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Again, I appreciate you being here. I'm excited to talk to you about it. And yeah, like I mentioned to you guys, we were going to bring it up Wednesday and talk about it because it was huge news, right? It was big. We all thought that maybe Zach Wilson would be benched. It was possible, right? I mean, it went from last Sunday after the games, it was the furthest thing in my mind, to now within 24 hours, everything was on the table. And I talked about it at the time. I thought that was a good thing. And I don't know, just, on that thought, Jeremy, I thought that was a good thing because I was like, you know what? And here was my take on it. I thought about it. I was like, if we were a losing team, if we had a losing record, then I actually would understand them wanting to keep Zach Wilson in because you want to see what this kid is. You want to see if he can learn, what he can do. He's clearly the future. That's like what Robert Saleh kind of reiterated on Wednesday, but it's different. And I think I joked about it because Zach's performance was so like, there's no adjective bad enough. Like, it was just an atrocity in front of us. It was so bad, it distracted us from the fact that we're 6-4, we're right out of the playoffs, like we're right there. And I think that's what the big thing was, that it was, okay, everything's on the table because we can still do this. The defense is playing so well. The team is playing so well. We need to put the best product on the field to keep winning games because we're right there. And if that means another quarterback, I think that's why kind of Robert Saleh was like, everything's on the table. I don't know what your take on it was.
Yeah, no, I think it was we were very lucky with the timing. And it's not to disrespect the Bears, but let's just be honest. This is, if you look at the schedule and you had to you had to give your starting quarterback a reset because he's just simply not executing. This is the right time to try to do it, because if he doesn't play well and we could still steal a win, and we could say, okay, let's give Zach a chance again. He had a chance to reset. Let's get him back in the lineup. Now, if Mike White plays great and we win, then we go another game and we say, well, let's just ride the hot hand, right? But to me, like, this is much better than if Miami was next on the schedule and we're just going to throw Mike White in there. Like, that would be very unsettling. But with Chicago, the issue is really us. If Fields play, it's stopping Fields. That's how you beat Chicago, right? So whoever we have at quarterback, if we're just efficient, short passes, get a running game against their defense, we should be able to do that. It won't make as big a difference, I don't think, as it would against a team that's going to stop your run and you heavily rely on your quarterback to make some timely plays.
I couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. All you guys out there, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Great to see all you guys. Dakota started it off. Dakota, I was actually going to read you guys because the way I felt was, and again, I, mentioned it just with Jeremy, I was kind of indifferent to it. Like, I was like, I get if they want to stick with Zach Wilson because, we talked about it on the channel. Mike White, he hasn't been great. He is an unknown. Joe Flacco's not what he used to be. Zach is the future. But at the same time, if they chose to go in another direction, I was indifferent about it, really. Like, I was like, be interesting to see how they do this. But Robert Saleh's explanation, it was a long one, but Robert Saleh's explanation of benching Zach Wilson was amazing. Jeremy, I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but it hit everything I could have wanted it to hit. Like, I felt like, and you guys might have saw on Twitter, I felt the need, like I wanted to put it out and I was like, I don't want to paraphrase any of this. This is beautiful. So I took a Google Doc, put the whole thing out, and it is amazing. Like, it is exactly what you would want your head coach, like, Jeremy, I've always felt Joe Douglas is the guy. But with Robert Saleh, he says all the right things. You're not quite sure. This felt like a big moment for me. Like, I don't know how you feel, but with Robert Saleh, this felt like a big moment of like, he knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like, he says all the right things, but what you say after you bench the second overall pick, it could go a million ways, right? What he said, I felt was excellent.
Yeah, no, he absolutely handled it as well as you can handle it as a coach. I mean, we don't know 100% the actual I don't think anybody knows for sure except them. If Zach would have came out of that game and in the locker room right away said, "It's all on me, guys. It's 100% me. Played horrible, no excuse for it. I need to, figure things out. I need to do a lot of soul searching right now, get my fundamentals back." Like if he would have came out and said that and said, "I'm absolutely sorry to my teammates. They deserve better than that in their quarterback. They trust me. I got the C on my shot." Like if he would have done all that, maybe he's still benched, maybe he's not. But nobody except the people in that locker room knows. People could sit there and we could all give our opinions, but anyone that pretends they know, like, "Oh no, he was going to be," no. Now, you know what I mean? We don't know. I personally think it was a combination, obviously, of yes. I think it's the same thing. It's not even a combination. I think the way he reacted after that game is directly related to his play. Like he was out, like he's out of sorts. So I think it's the same thing that drove his poor play in that game is the same exact problem. It's a symptom of the same thing that had him not take accountability of it. Something is going on with this kid. I mean, we both loved him out of BYU. You and me have watched tons of tape on this guy. I know that you're a huge Zach fan like
Yeah,
me,
that's the thing. And like
huge supporter.
I talked about that the other day. Like when my take on Zach has changed a little bit, literally based on that one game. And I think Salah and I definitely want to hear what you use, but I think Salah hit it on the head perfectly with how I felt. That's why I love
Yeah,
what he said.
yeah, and because we know he knows how to throw a football. We watched it. I got tape. We could watch the tape. Anybody could go after the show, Google it on YouTube. Go on YouTube and search for it. Zach Wilson, BYU versus any of the teams he played against. It doesn't matter the level of the people keep saying, "Yeah, but that was low level." It doesn't matter how low level it was.
Yeah, I
If you
showed it was the
watch,
opposite. That argument worked
but
for him, not against
right,
him.
right. If you watched him, regardless of who the competition was, he knows how to throw a football. He knows how to plant his feet and he knows how to throw a football. He does. But he forgot. And I think it's because he's so overwhelmed, whatever it is. We can sit here and make theories all day, but that's not Zach Wilson's best. Zach Wilson was, what I think he doesn't understand what's happening now because he's playing scared. He's doing all the kind of throws when he's flicking the ball or sidearming the ball or throwing off balance. Those are the things you do when you have to, when you can't plant your feet, when you're in a rush. And those are the things that make you special. But when you start throwing the ball like that, when you don't have to throw the ball like that, that means you're off your game. You're not, something's off. And I think the reset can only help him. And it's either going to help him or it's going to be the beginning of the end for him, to be realistic.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far yet. I mean, it's possible. It's definitely, and I think that's the reason Salah made the decision, and that was the big distinctive factor for me. I was feeling that, and I mentioned it when I made my take on Zach. About my whole take had changed because all the things I loved from Zach Wilson in college, all the things that I kept bringing to you guys, like I mentioned, the things I loved, the things I was a huge fan of, why I felt he could be an NFL quarterback. He showed that in his rookie year, and then this year he hadn't showed it as much. And yes, he's been playing top NFL defenses. I've been taking that into account, pointing that out. Top NFL defenses, top NFL secondaries, and he's played smart football a lot. And as our defense has showed us, playing smart football can more often than not win the game for us if the defense is playing at the level it's at. But in that game, it was just the sailed balls, like you mentioned. And I said it last year, like accuracy wasn't a problem for him at BYU. If you watched him, that was my favorite thing about him, being able to come out of the pocket off script and hit wide receivers in perfect stride, at least get the ball within vicinity, not sailing it the way he was. It was never an issue for him. So it was, interesting. Like, and that was literally my thing with why I felt that with Zach. So I did want to, Robert Saleh. I mentioned I was indifferent with him being benched. Like I was, I felt like there could be good in it, like the reasons Robert Saleh says, but I also wasn't really sure. This answer, perfect for me. I totally agree with it. So I want to read it to you guys because it was perfect.
Mm.
So Robert Saleh said, Zach Wilson's career here is not over. I know that that's going to be the narrative, but that's not even close to the case. The intent is to make sure that Zach gets back on the football field at some point this year. Thought that was interesting. I want to, I'm going to read the whole thing. I want to talk about it with you, Jeremy. He said, when that is, I'll make that decision. I'm going to take it day by day. He said, the biggest thing with Zach is that the young man needs a reset. And that was literally how I felt as well. He said his decision making has been fine, practice habits, all that's been fine, but there are some basic fundamental things that have really gotten out of whack for him. And this is just an opportunity for him to sit back, focus on those things, find a way to reconnect with all the different things that we love, that we fell in love with him during the draft process. And that's something that I feel like he's going to be able to do. And there's more to it. We're going to talk about it, but that was literally how I felt. And that's what we're explaining. Like that game, I was joking that if he was a rookie playing in his first game ever, we would have been like, that's unacceptable. Even for a kid playing in his first game ever, that was terrible. So it was bad. We literally, some people were saying he's regressing in front of our eyes. He's missing these things. He doesn't miss. It's clear, like Robert's all saying, something is wrong here. He needs this reset. And I think that's why making him inactive, this is a great thing. He literally gets to, not like Robert Sala says later on, not have to worry, about playing in the game. And yeah, I want to you what you think as well, but there's even more to what he said. But I loved that. Definitely, how he said, especially getting back to all the things we fell in love with him, because that was literally my thing. Like I'm not seeing all those things that I thought were great about Zach Wilson. What is happening?
Yeah, I think that making Zach inactive was one of two things. Again, we don't know for sure. We can only speculate. To me, the more obvious thing is so Mike White's not looking over his shoulder. So the first time something goes wrong, everybody's not screaming, put Zach back in. It was like they want to give this kid a reset. Don't tempt yourself. Make him inactive, make him not available, allow him to truly have the reset. Like, dude, you're not playing. Work on your fundamentals. Don't think about the Bears. Don't think about playbook. Don't think about game plan. I want you thinking and focusing on reset. The only other explanation I can think of that's a possibility. I don't know. I just recognize it as a possibility. Is because of his post game answer on Sunday they're setting a standard for the team culture. If you mess up and you talk to the media and you say something selfish or you do something at that level, you're going to be inactive the next week and nobody is immune to it. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying I wouldn't rule that out completely as being the case.
No, and I couldn't agree more. And that was again like I originally was indifferent. I was very curious to see what was going to happen, but I love this. Like you said, the reset is really what needs to happen in this situation for literally, like Salah's saying, and like we're seeing, it doesn't, we're literally seeing regression in front of our eyes. This needs to be fixed. There's clearly, like you said here, which I thought was perfect. He said, that he felt like his decision making was fine. He was practicing fine, but there were fundamental things that had really gotten out of whack for him. And that, makes sense. Like you said, an opportunity to sit back, focus on those things. Fun. Again, just the answer was beautiful. Find a way to reconnect with all the different things that we fell in love with him. And then, well, again, just going on, that it was perfect. He points out that, I think to ask him to do all those things while preparing for a game is unfair. Then he says at the same time, it's something just talking with Zach that we both feel like we can do. He said and he said, is it a small step back for him? Absolutely. But do I think it's going to be a great leap forward when he does get a chance to reset himself? Absolutely. Then he emphasizes this is not putting a nail in his coffin, not even close to that. But I do believe at the end, there's going to be a rejuvenated, renewed young man that once he reconnects to all the different things that we're trying to reconnect to, he's going to show everyone why he's the second pick. I just wanted Robert Saleh to grab the mic, pick it up, drop it, and just walk off. like that was like greatest answer ever. Just bing and just done. Like that, like everything, like we're saying, everything we wanted, understanding to get that reset, not to do it during the game, that he's obviously regressing and something is wrong, and that it's not good now, but it's going to be good down in the future. And he's definitely still our quarterback. Just perfect. I don't know. I thought it was beautiful.
I love how it disarms people like a Rich Samini because like they so badly if he doesn't say it like that. So you're saying his career's over as a Jet? Is he ever going to play as a Jet? He totally
Oh, bro,
disarms him to the point where
since you said that,
the
and
press looks
just yeah,
stupid.
I know, and this is huge. And I saw this, and I didn't want to call him out. So and I joke like I do my reporting as well, and that's actually I mentioned on your show. That's what got me into the reporting. I got into it because of negative spins and people taking sections of quotes that weren't the whole thing, and it was out of context, and it made it like I would joke like they'd ask a player like how he's doing with his rehab, and he'd be like I'm working hard, training good, busting my ass, doing everything I can, but life's unfair. And then the beat writer takes the guy said life's unfair. And everyone's like, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
Like that's what got me into it. And that's why I like started doing it. And that was a big thing because they asked Robert Saleh and he said like literally like almost verbatim, he was like, when I went to Zach, he said things like, he literally said, oh, I want to play. I want to be the guy because he's motivated. He was trying to point out that he's driven and he wants to be the guy. But if you saw it, the beat writers literally put out Zach Wilson was crying, why me? Why me? And it was like, wait a minute, that's so out of context. That's not at all what he meant.
right. They love to do that, but and they were so upset almost by the way because they kept saying so. Like they didn't know what to say because of course once they say he's not playing, they want to pounce. Oh, so he's gone. You're saying he's over as a Jet? Has he seen his? He took all that away with his opening statement. So they were like,
There
so
was a pause, which is
he
really
could play
funny.
again. Yeah, they were like, so he could play again. So he's not all. You still believe in him. Like he took away any question, anything that they can and basically said, now if you want to write all that, now I just made you a liar. You're a blatant liar.
And you know what's funny about that? He knew that. Again, Salah, genius. If you watch again, because like I said, I do, my reporting. I try to bring everyone, the honest thing. I watch all the press conferences. At the end of it, I think it was Kaz. Kaz asked Salah about Sauce Gardner, and Salah made a face and smacked the podium, and he's like, "Okay, I owe Joe a bet," because he honestly thought that there was going to be no questions about anybody else after he mentioned that.
Yeah.
Like it was the whole thing. It was just Zach, and then right at the end, Kaz is like, "Well, wait a minute, is Sauce going to play?" And he's like, "Oh shit." He's like, "I owe someone some money." That's literally what he said. That's literally what he said. He's like, "Oh shit, I was." He didn't say shit, but he's like, he said, "I owe someone some money." That
Yeah.
cracked me up. But yeah, I just thought it was a perfect answer because that's what you want. This is your young kid. We've seen other quarterbacks before. Tua, right? Tua was benched in his sophomore year. How many Dolphin fans were calling for his head last year? Like, he sucks. He sucks. They're the best team in football. He's the best team in the AFC East. Don't even mean I said that. I mean, can't even believe I said that. I want to vomit saying that. They are the number one team in the AFC East, not football. The number one team in the AFC East right now, and Tua is playing good football. So, again, young kid, there's so many things we loved about him. We know that all the talent is there, all the things he needs are there. It seemed like last year when he was making inaccurate throws, I was like, okay, something else is up because accuracy is not his problem. Maybe he's making bad reads, or they're changing the way he goes through reads, or they're changing his footwork, or something. But this was so bad that it makes sense. You have to take a step back right now because we've seen, as Jet fans, we've seen the quarterback regression. We unfortunately know the young quarterback regression. We've seen it way too much. And I think that's why so many of us were like, because we were watching it. We're like, oh my God, it's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
But that's why this is perfect. Again, Robert Saleh says, okay, it's time to put a wrench in it. And he says it's time to get through. Again, just his answer, if you haven't seen it, I read the whole thing before, put it at perfect. Literally hit everything I wanted. I feel so good about Zach being benched right now because I know we're in this to win, right? We're going to try to win some games, but they're working with him on those fundamentals, like they said. So we've seen the good of him. They can get this reset done. That's what we need. That's what we need to see. And we've seen before, I want to hear what you think as well. There's plenty of quarterbacks. And I hate to say it. I said in the beginning of the season, I was hoping it wasn't the case, but there's plenty of really good quarterbacks that we've seen kind of stink for 2 years and make the major progression in year 3. So again, maybe this reset is everything we want and we start to see a better Zach Wilson. That's what we need.
Yeah, if he comes back this year, and the only thing that would stop him from coming back this year, I think, is if Mike White just played lights out, right? If Mike White is playing great and we're winning, they proved they proved, and a million people are saying it, and like we've heard it, you know, we're not going to mess with that because you never know how big or small the window is going to be. And Dom C is a big proponent of this. He said, now that his name's up there, but he said this several times. The reality is there's no guarantee our defense will be this stellar next year or the year after that. We're hoping it will. We believe that it has every potential to, but you don't know. Right now, there's a window.
Is that Dom's take? Because that's a fantastic take.
Yeah,
I like
no, yeah. Dom's been saying it all the time.
Dom,
He goes, "Don't make
shout out to you, brother. I like that. That's a fantastic point. So many things change in a year. There's so many moving parts. I like that. I like that. We're on it right now to win.
So while we're hopeful that we're building a empire that's going to be 10 years of dominant defense and great competitive football, there's no guarantee. Right now, the defense is stellar. Right now, the defense
is outstanding, man. So, I would go as far to say over the last 6 weeks, we have arguably the best defense in all of football.
Right. So there's no rule. So if Mike White comes out and he's completely efficient and does everything that's asked him to do, and he gets the ball in the hands, and suddenly Elijah's waking up, making huge plays, and Garrett Wilson's on fire, if he's able to do all this and wake them up because he's able to just get back there, get rid of the ball quick, see that these guys are open, if he's able to do that, Zach might not get a chance to play this year. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm saying, but it could be.
And you know what? That's not the worst thing. Like, that's like, okay, so we're winning. That's like, the joke we always make. Like, yeah, all these things can happen, but when you're winning, it doesn't matter, right?
All that matters is we're winning. But here's the thing. If he doesn't get to play again this year, it's very hard to imagine they're not going to bring in a veteran. Like, he's not going to get the opportunity to have them put on the brakes. Because let's say Mike White plays well enough that they win and he keeps the job, but not well enough that they're thinking we want Mike White to be the quarterback for the next 5 years, right? Now, what do? Do we go into next year with Mike White still and Zach Wilson and hope that Zach turns it around, even though he didn't get a chance to prove it? Or are we going to go out and get somebody? I'm not saying go out and get Derek Carr. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about I'm more reasonable about it. I'm thinking Minshew, a guy who can compete, but not necessarily put Zach on the bench.
See, I would have to disagree. I feel like if you're going to bring a veteran in, you're bringing in a veteran to start. Like, if you're bringing in a veteran, you're bringing in like Aaron Rodgers. And that was my interesting take. It's like, wait a minute. So Aaron Rodgers sat behind years learning from Brett Favre. If Zach's going to learn from anyone, Aaron Rodgers is a damn good guy to learn from. I mean, if you're going to bring someone in, maybe like a guy like that to play for like a season, maybe 2 tops, because again, you're hoping the defense can stay as good as it was, but the Broncos are like the perfect blueprint, right? They had one of the best defenses in football, a fantastic offense. They needed a quarterback, input Peyton Manning, win the Super Bowl. Like, it works. And that could be an interesting direction. So I think if they bring in a veteran, it's to start. There's a lot of interesting that we could talk about. There's a lot of interesting names being thrown around. My quick takes, first one is Jimmy G. I'm not a huge fan, and you guys know that. I'm not saying he's bad. I've never said he's bad, but he reminds me like a guy like Sanchez was. Like, he's an excellent system quarterback, but he's never going to be the guy that's going to take you if you put it on his back, you may not get the result you want. And the Niners have witnessed that firsthand. There's Lamar Jackson, who, mother may I would beg for him. I don't think he's really an option. I think it's going to get done with the Ravens. I think they understand, and I've talked about you guys on the channel before. That was my quarterback back in 2018. I always felt like Lamar would be an excellent NFL quarterback. They know what they have in him. I don't think, even though it hasn't gotten done yet, I would be shocked if he goes anywhere. That being the case, I'll sign up as fast as I can. And then the other option people bring up is Derek Carr. I think that's an interesting one, but that requires a trade. That's an interesting one as well. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of bringing in a guy like Minshew. I feel like you bring in like a top guy to start that Zach can maybe learn from and sit behind.
But there's a problem with that. Like, Aaron Rodgers would have to, he's going to work pro bono? Because right now he has a $50 million contract.
Well, you got to make room. That you got it. Well, Joe Douglas is the master of contracts.
But do you really want to go that direction? You know how many guys you'd have to cut and not resign? You'd have to change the whole team.
To be fair, you're talking about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's like, I don't know how you guys.
Yeah, but he built this franchise to have long, success. you start getting you have to chop down the
Excuse me.
team and let key players go to get
Well, we
Aaron
do have a
Rodgers
young
in.
team. I would say the base of our team is very young. We have one of the youngest teams in the league. So we have a lot of guys that are under younger contracts. Like again, guy like CJ Mosley, I would never want. I don't want to move on from him. I think he is an excellent player. He's the leader of our defense. He's an
We
outstanding
can't
guy.
move on.
He's
We
a
can't
great
move on.
tackler. But technically, I mean, you take a decent amount of dead, but technically you can. I'm just saying if you wanted to free up money, if you like a guy like Jamie and Sherwood, let's say, I feel like Sherwood has shown a lot at middle linebacker and he's surprised a lot. I'm not saying he's going to be CJ Mosley, but I do want to see what he could do more. So I don't know what they're going to do, but paying a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. It's like bringing in Peyton Manning. You're
What's the
making
dead
this, yeah.
what's the dead cap space of cutting CJ Mosley?
I'd have to bring it up. I know it's doable. I know it's not the greatest
I thought
thing.
it was like 20
Like it's
million.
not it's not that crazy. It's not the best move. I'm not gonna like say, you're not walking away scot-free from it. Let's see. If they cut CJ in 2023, they would take a 15 million dead cap, but they'd free up almost 22. So his contract is pretty structured where it is an out. I mean, they call it a potential out in 2023, but I guess because they're factoring in the next 2 years. So they're saying
I
that,
do want to throw one point about Jimmy G in, and I agree he's not the guy who's going to carry you on your back. But you said something. I just want to make this point.
yeah.
If they brought in Jimmy G, I'm just saying this because it's true. He's the best quarterback to be in our building since Chad Pennington. Just understand that. So it's funny as Jet fans that we're sitting there going, Jimmy G's not good enough, but he's the best quarterback in 20 years that would put on a Jets uniform with arguably Brett Favre
Well,
the one
yeah,
year.
I was just about to say, yeah,
Yeah,
you just stole mine. I was about to say, yeah,
yeah.
Brett Favre for 1 year. That's what I was going to say. You did have Brett Favre for 1 year. I mean, Fitzpatrick had a good year. I feel like, and again, I don't want to move on from Zach Wilson. I
Me
feel like
neither.
just because Zach had this really bad game doesn't mean we should moving on from him. And I think Salah nailed it the most, saying specific things like starting it with Zach's career here is not over, saying things like this is not a nail. Like you said, trying to make it as like you can't interpret this as otherwise. This is not a nail in the coffin, not even close to that. Like, but I love the way he ends it again with rejuvenated, renewed young man. Once he reconnects to the different things that we loved about him, he's going to show what he can be. I still believe in the kid. I do. I still believe in Zach Wilson. And I feel like, again, that was an awful game. It was absolutely atrocious. But I mean, he needs to retool. He needs to get better. But I mean, it's interesting. He
Look,
has to obviously fix the things.
it's
Yeah.
sickening to have these conversations about bringing in quarterbacks. It's sickening because, of course, we want Zach Wilson to work out, and for so many reasons, right? We've been huge advocates of his. We believe in him. We believe that if he turned this around, his talent can make him special. We believe in all that. Plus, think of how much better it is for the organization based on what we're saying now. We're talking about all these things you'd have to do to bring in an Aaron Rodgers or a Derek Carr, right? And the money and CJ Mosley and this and that. If Zach just turns it around, we don't have to worry about any of those things.
And that's the point. And I mean, it's like you said, there's so many different variables right now and so many different factors to consider. So it's like Mike White. Love to talk about him for a second. We haven't spoken about him yet. And I mentioned to you guys I had a surprise stat on him that I thought you might find interesting.
Mhm.
So when you look at Mike White, you have to remember he was a fifth round pick. He was a fifth round pick that wasn't supposed to be given the opportunity to really start when he was drafted. And he was, with the Cowboys for many years. And he sat, a few years, sat there for a little bit. But when we got him, he hadn't played before. He had literally not played a regular season NFL game before. And he was a fifth round pick. I mentioned back, I think it was, I'm pretty sure 2018 when he went in the fifth round. I loved one thing I just remember it always stuck with me with specifically him before the draft. They asked him a question about certain reads of a play, and his answer was just unbelievable, like high football IQ level. Like I was like, this guy's a later round pick. He's an interesting guy to keep an eye on. But he's a fifth round pick that's only played 4 games before. That's it. He's only played in 4 games. We have to remember that. I mean, we're looking at Zach Wilson, who's a second overall pick, he's been banged up, but it's been like a little over a season, right? Little
Like
over a
20
season.
games.
Yeah, 20 games, like season half-ish, season quarter, something like that.
Yep.
Whatever math is. but Mike White is a fifth round pick that has only played in 4 games before. And here's my interesting take with that. So it's first to look at that perspective, right? First is perspective. Zach Wilson's second overall pick. That's why he's under a lot of scrutiny. Mike White's a fifth round pick. There's not a lot, a lot of expectation, but he's only played in 4 games. We don't know what he can be. And again, you look at him, physically, he's everything you want in an NFL cornerback. He's got the height, the size, he just checks all the boxes. What is that going to translate to? So we look at his 4 games. Here's my interesting take on it. Because it's 4 games, it's a small sample size. It's a really, really small sample size. And it's his first 4 games ever. So you can almost look at it like a rookie playing in their first games as a fifth round pick. Well, again, we said 4 games is a very misleading sample size. Let's think about something for a second. In his worst games, they were against New England, which was at New England, and then Buffalo. We've always fared unfortunately bad against New England. I hate to admit it. It's why we always say F the Pats. Bill Belichick has our number, and he clearly has Zach Wilson's number. Zach Wilson has more interceptions against them than anybody, like some teams combined, because he just has his number. So if we remember that, the New England always seems to have the Jets' number. And lately, the Bills do too, right? Lately, the Bills, top of the division, we beat them the last time. Can't remember we didn't. But let's remember the last, 3 times we played them before that. So that being the case, if we factor out those 2 divisional games, then because again, it's a small sample size. We're looking at that game where he went insane, where he threw over 40, almost 45 completions, over 400 something yards and 3 touchdowns. And then in the game after that, he only threw 11 times, but he averaged almost 9 yards a throw through 1 touchdown and no interceptions. In fact, in those 2 games, he had a QBR of 107.9 and 121.4. So if we look at just that, we're like, well, okay, we've always sometimes fared bad against Buffalo and New England. This, again, fifth round pick, right? Young kid still. This could be interesting, right? What if Mike White comes out? Because we know our defense can hold with anybody, right? We said our defense is one of the best in the league. They can hold with anybody. So that being the case, excuse me, that being the case, we just need decent quarterback play. It could be great to have good quarterback play, but even not what Zach Wilson did, decent quarterback play can win it. And we look at, again, Mike White. This is interesting. I think, not saying he's going to be great, but he could definitely be good enough to maybe take the Jets on a little bit of a run.
Yeah, I think he definitely has potential for growth, and it's not fair for people to have capped based on the 4 games he played, because it was his first 4 games. And we don't know for sure what he could develop into. Nobody knows for sure. It's just impossible to say, but the reality is he's never played worse than Zach did on that one particular game last week. Like, in other words, we're not going to get worse. We're not going to get a worse performance because something was off with Zach. Like, he should have been pulled out of the game probably when you think about it. He couldn't do anything because he was so, I don't know what it was, but something was wrong. Like,
Something
literally
was
wrong.
very wrong.
He had an open receiver that was uncovered in Denzel Mims that he was staring right at and didn't throw the ball. He couldn't throw the ball right over to his best friend Berrios, who was standing there, right? I mean, something was wrong. So Mike White's not going to come in and be at that level where something's wrong. Mike White's going to be able to throw all the short stuff. He's going to be able to hit Conklin easy. He's going to be able to hit Elijah Moore out of the slot easy. He's going to be able to dump the ball off to Michael Carter all day long. Like, he's not going to have those issues.
Yeah, the
So
easy throws that you shouldn't be missing.
Yeah, it's not going to be worse.
Yeah, and you remember the big thing, like, I always feel like when the last game started, I was like, okay, this is a bad win. Like, we know that. Like, Greg Zuerlein, remember, he had to kick that field goal like a line drive shot, like 10 yards left to be able to make it. So I was like, this is a crazy win. Mm-hmm. But Mac Jones was killing it. Mac Jones was killing it and making great completions in that win. So that takes that out of the equation. It was, I had my episode. It was, that changed my take, literally changed my take from going, how much, great. I obviously felt, Zach Wilson could still be great, but I'm like, okay, that's not what you want to see. Like you said, now maybe it's the time to bench him. something's wrong here. And now is the time, I feel like the best way to put it was, a lot of people were asking Robert Saleh about, those games when Zach Wilson had bad games like against the Patriots. And he was saying stuff like, now's not the time to sound the alarm. Like we were all saying that. He's a young kid. He's only played an X amount of games. The way I look at it after a game like that, and coming from, me, like the most optimistic of Zach Wilson people, it's not time to sound the alarm, but it's time to put your hand on it. like that's how I'm looking at it, Like it's not time to sound it yet, but it's time to start making your way toward it. Because that, like you said, that was the first game for a rookie that would have been unacceptable. Like the numbers, like even thinking about it now, it's over a week later. Like thinking about the numbers is still nauseating. Like absolutely nauseating.
It's the first time that this season where I went to the film, and mostly it's Dom C who does that for me, but I look too. I have the all 22. It's the first time I went to the all 22, and it was worse. Like every other time, it was like, oh look, everybody was covered. Yes, maybe he shouldn't have made that bonehead run backwards 15 yards and throw the ball and not get it out of bounds and it's an interception, but everyone was covered. Like it was like there were explanations for why he was holding on to the ball. There were explanations to why he wasn't getting rid of the ball in other weeks. What was so hard about this week and what's so hard to understand about why they didn't just not bench him, like you're benched, that's it, you're not our quarterback ever again, but just something's wrong with you today. We need to put in our backup because we're not going to be able to score or do anything with you because you're off. Something's wrong and we need to fix it. The fact that he didn't do that is shocking after you watch the all 22 because it was worse than it even looked because guys were open and he was staring right at them. And I think a couple of people, Green Bean for one, said it, and I think said it correctly. He was playing scared. He was like, and part of playing scared is you can't pull the trigger. You see the guy and you can't react and throw it because you're overthinking and it's like that movie, The Replacements, quicksand. Zach Wilson was in quicksand that game.
Yeah, dude, it was like, and again, coming from someone like me who you remember this was my guy in the draft.
I still love the kid.
No, and same thing. And it's just, but it does change your perception because, like I pointed out on my channel at that point, everyone's, like Zach Wilson's playing bad, and they're like, oh no, what's happening to your guy? I'm a Jets fan. I'm a Jets fan just like you guys. I want to win. Winning is the most important thing. I want to keep winning. If it's with Zach Wilson and he becomes the guy, that's great. If he can't be the guy and it's someone else, that's fine too. And that's why, again, what I like what Robert Saleh did was beautiful. The everything on the table, again, shows that exactly. It would be disrespectful to the players that are playing at a high level, that have won all these games. It'd be disrespectful to the defense that Zach Wilson doesn't think he owes an apology to, but that's another thing. It's disrespectful to the defense and to us as fans to not be like, you're in a playoff. But we were the number one team outside the bubble. We got to win this week. But right now we're in it. We're in it right now. We're in that bottom spot. We got to win it because if we don't win, we give it back to the Patriots. But we got to win it. It's a win game, but we're in it. And that's the point. And that's why everything was on the table. Because I like how Saleh put it. He said it's the quarterback, but it's the wide receivers. It's the line. It's the running backs. It's everything. Everything's on the table. We want to put the best product on the field to win. And what is that? And I think, again, what that might mean is we've seen, in my opinion, too much Ty Johnson out of lately. I'm hoping putting best product on the field to win means Michael Carter and James Robinson and not so much Ty. I don't know what you think, Jeremy.
Didn't understand it at all. We'll never understand it. We'll never understand it. That personnel decision, their obsession with Ty Johnson is something I will never understand.
To be fair, though, I said the same thing about Nathan Shepard, and he is proving my ass wrong. Like he is proving all of us wrong. Like my biggest thing was like, I don't know what the hell he's doing out there. He was my Chuma Edoga on defense. Like with Chuma, I was like, why the hell is he out there? But on defense, like Nathan, I never understood why Shepard was out there. He's been performing well this season. And I like what Robert Saleh said about it. It was very interesting. Robert Saleh, he said a bunch of good things about him, but he said, whoever Nathan Shepard lines up against by the end of the game, I can guarantee you he's felt his presence. And I'm like, that's what you want from a defensive tackle. Imposing is the thing you think of, like a Quinnen. So I was never big on him, but I got to eat some crow, man. I mean, eating the middle of that D line like a solid dude.
Yeah, I think it became noticeable a few weeks ago. I think a few games ago, I said, "You know something? Shep played really good today." And then, everybody started saying, "Yeah, he did. He did. There's no question he played well." And then they had the next game. I think it was the game they beat Buffalo. And we were like, Shep really played good. And I was like, wow, he's really doing it. And yeah, Shep is playing well. With the problem I have, or the issue I have with Ty Johnson, is he's taking up the spot for Bam Knight, who is someone I really like.
Thank you. Oh my
And
God, I
and
was
and that's what
championing for that guy.
yeah, and that's what really bothers me. But also, I don't like having a guy in there, especially because they were using him on third down. You're using a third down running back that you can't trust as a safety valve because he drops the ball. Like, you can't trust him. So it's like, yes, I know you want him in there to block, maybe as a blocking running back, but you can't trust him as a receiver. And this just all goes back to the pain of obviously losing Brees Hall, but also, the question that it raises for me above all else that I don't understand is James Robinson is a good pass protecting, blocking running back.
He
So I don't
is.
understand why he's not the third down running back.
Bro, I am a huge love that you brought him up. I had my take on him when we signed him. I've been a huge fan of Joe Douglas for so long, and the main reason is he does, unlike other GMs in the past, a lot of things that I would do. Like I'm like, okay, the James Robinson thing. I was literally thinking to myself, like before we brought him on, like no joke, like if we were going to go for a running back, that's the kind of guy I'd want to go for because he's
Yeah.
not the main guy there anymore because they took Travis Etienne, but he's proven if you watched him, he's the fourth UDFA in the history of football to rush for over 1,000 yards in their rookie year. The dude is awesome. He's a bell cow. He's got a great average. He's not bad receiving as well. And people say he's not that fast. Well, he ain't slow. He's not Brees Hall fast. Let's be fair. Most big guys aren't Brees Hall fast. That's what made Brees Hall freaking legendary. That's why his presence will never be filled until next year when he comes back. We get that. There is no Brees Hall. You're not doing that. But James Robinson is a hell of a presence in his own right. He's more, and people mentioned it when I talked about the kind of runner he is, a one-cut guy, bull kind of runner. People reminded me, I'm like, you know what? It's kind of like Sean Green. He's a Sean Green type like runner who also has that extra gear. And yeah, again, it's not Brees Hall, but nobody is. That's why, again, Brees Hall next year is going to take the NFL by storm. He's going to run all over this damn thing because he is a legend. These guys are good, but I love that tandem of Carter and James Robinson. No Ty Johnson. Give me the two
Yeah.
of them all day. I mean, James Robinson's had games with the Jaguars where he's been the bell cow back in his rookie year. Look at it, where he had almost 30 something, 40 carries a game. So just the two of them. We don't need anybody else.
Yeah, it's hard to understand. I thought that maybe both Michael Carter and James Robinson were like banged up or something, and he was trying to give them as much rest as possible. I didn't know. It
It's a
was very hard
logical
to
thought.
it was just very hard to understand. I mean, look, I don't want to bash him too much. I mean, because he's a hot and cold guy, and when he's hot, he's good. Like he's done some things where he's very physical. I've seen him. There are moments I love him because there were moments that he gets, he'll catch a small pass and he goes so hard into the defenders. Like it's not about heart. This kid wants it. Like I will never put down his heart because he's very physical and he'll sacrifice his body and do everything he can for a first down. But from a talent perspective, I just don't understand it because he's
Yeah.
too inconsistent. He's too hot and cold. And you just, you need guys that you can trust.
Yeah. And all you guys out there in the comments, we appreciate all you guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts, any questions you have, anything you guys are thinking. Shout out to Hater. Hater Ali said, if you get a chance, go back and watch. Here's some of Salah's previous interviews over the years. Great football mind, understands the psychology of the game, great
Mhm.
knowledge of both sides of the ball. Man, Hater,
Yep.
if you follow me on Twitter, like I was mentioning Jeremy earlier, that's what I bring you guys. I bring you guys the press conferences. I'm as many as I can. I always listen to as many as I can all the time. Bring them to you guys. Salah, everything he said. And that's always been my take on him. Like, I want him to be my guy because everything he says is perfect. He says all the right things. He's got the 100% right attitude. He's got the mantra, the way he brings it. Brees Hall said it perfectly. When Brees Hall came, they asked him about the culture. And he said, when I got here, there was a clear understanding of how things are done. And if you didn't buy into that, you could get out. He said it reminded him of what Iowa State had. And that's exactly what you want to hear. So, man, I'm 100% with you. Since Sal has been here, you guys know I've been bringing you the pressers, just unbelievable quotes all around. To Wednesdays. To Wednesdays, again, the benching of a second overall pick. That's a volatile situation of who this guy could be, how much was invested in him being benched already. Very volatile. Handed it like a masterpiece. His answer, again, couldn't have been more fantastic.
Yep. Love Hader Ali. Glad he's out there. Hope he had a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, all you guys. Hope you guys had a great
Yep.
Thanksgiving. Hope everything
Everybody
was,
out there. Yep.
good on your guys' end. Hope everything, was good. So Dom points out, and I look at it as, I don't want to look at it till next year because that's the point. We're winning. We want to win now, right? We're in the playoffs. That's the take here. Everything else should fall to the wayside. We're in the playoffs right now. We need to do whatever it takes to stay there. That's what matters the most. Because like we said, you, Jeremy, just like me, we're Jet fans, right? Doesn't matter who's behind center, who's doing what. If we're winning, that's what matters. So if we can get in the playoffs, stay in the playoffs. Again, our defense has been amazing. Over the last 6 weeks, arguably, we have the best defense. Our pass rush, relentless is the best word to describe them. They are consistently getting at the quarterback from all angles, and everybody is feasting. Like we're talking about Shepard. Everybody along that line is feasting. Corners are the best, right? Sauce and DJ can't have better than them. Factor in Michael Carter the second even. Safeties are playing well. Michael White just has to be good enough. That's what it is. He has to play mistake-free football and just be good enough. And we mentioned fifth-round pick, only played 4 games. When you factor out what are normally rough games for Jet quarterbacks, regardless who's behind there lately. If you factor out the Patriots and the Bills, there's a lot of promise there. A lot of promise.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not looking for him to come in and be a superstar. We're just looking for him to come in and be a game manager and allow us to use the weapons that we have on this team. And the timing is perfect for him. I mean, Herbig is going to be back this week, so that's going to help. Max Mitchell and George Fant both had their windows opened or whatever. So one of them is coming back, probably Max first. I think even possibly by the Vikings game, we'll have Max Mitchell back. The game after that, I think we might have Fant back. So reinforcements are coming. The line is going to get better. That'll help our run game get stronger again. Things are coming, and we just need our quarterback to be a game manager. No mistakes. Make the play, get the balls into the hands of the playmakers. Very simple. You don't have to be a hero. You don't have to throw it 30 yards downfield. Nope. Just toss it over to them. Short passes, slants, whatever. Just get the ball over to them and don't make mistakes.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, you got guys like Garrett Wilson where you just have to put the ball near him. Just put it. He showed it. Remember, Zach Wilson had that, I think it was, 2 games ago, right? Where he had that ridiculous sidearm. It was like a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. And Garrett Wilson went on his knee and caught it. That was insane. Just put the ball near him. Corey Davis is back. Corey Davis is easily, next to Garrett Wilson, the best receiver on this team. Remember, we joked about it. I mentioned with you guys, everyone, when they were all saying, all the beat writers, we were joking about that Corey Davis is getting traded. I was like, these guys don't know what they're talking about. Corey Davis ain't going anywhere. He is a crucial part of this offense, and he's been showing that. So, man, Corey's back. Salah pointed out today, which is big news, that Mims is still going to be part of this offense. He won't be inactive because he's earned his right. So, man, you got Garrett, you got Corey back, you got Mims, you got Elijah, you got Braxton Berrios. The weapons are all there. It's all there for Mike. And again, you look at it as he hasn't had that much time, hasn't shown that much. He's got the prototypical everything you want in an NFL quarterback. That's what we've always said about Mike White. The height, the speed, everything. He checks every box. Can it translate? Or can he even do just enough that with our defense, they win games? And that's really all that matters. So I do want to address this one because totally I do have to disagree, Mr. Tony Alexio. Totally have to disagree because saying, Zach Wilson's a bust. We want Strebler. I think he's joking. I think he's got the
Yeah,
maybe he's joking.
He goes on to every show and does this. It's the same.
Oh,
It's cut and pasting. Everybody
I
else has
got
been
you.
blocking
I
him and
got you.
ignoring him. Yeah.
So yeah, so we know obviously we don't even have to have that conversation because
Yeah.
we know Zach's not a bust. I mean, obviously, Tua Tagovailoa, we've seen so many quarterbacks bench. He needs to retool. If he takes this reset and he can't turn it around, then like we said, our hand is on the alarm. Maybe it's time to think about pulling it. But let's give the reset, right? Give the reset, let him retool. I like again how Salah's approaching this. Again, there's clearly something wrong. Like what we saw, you can't put words on it. It was like everything was just it was so off. It makes sense. You got to sit him, not even as a backup. Everyone's like, why isn't he the backup? Because if you're putting him down, you want him actually sitting. The inactive makes the most sense. And got a guy like worst case Joe Flacco, who let's remember he is a playoff. He's not what he used to be, but he is a playoff proven Super Bowl winning quarterback. That's not the worst guy to have as QB2.
No, it's look, we don't have the best number 2 quarterback in the NFL. We don't have a quarterback controversy, or we didn't, right, or anything like that. But we do have depth. Like Mike White and Flacco is depth in the sense that we don't go to there are times in our history where guys have come in to play quarterback for us that I don't even want to remember. Like guys that was just
You
like,
blocked him
oh,
from memory.
what are we doing? So I blocked it from my memory. So, at least we got, any of these guys can come in and we're capable of winning a game or winning with them as our quarterback, right? I mean, whether it's Flacco, whether it's Mike White, either one of those two is backup quarterbacks. Mike White showed it last year. And I think Flacco, even though he's not the same guy, it's in his brain. He understands how to read defenses. He understands, he knows what he's looking at when he's looking at the field.
Yeah.
He's able to do it. Like, so it's not ideal. He's not the guy you want in there if, in the biggest game of our season or something like that. But at the same time, we've had much worse backup quarterbacks. I mean, at least these are guys that have shown that they can come in and keep your team in the game. And the great thing about us is we're not in a situation as a team where we've had to rely on great quarterback play. Everything we have right now has been due mainly to the defense and some to the if you look at the offense at all, it would be the running more than it would be the passing game, with the exception of the Pittsburgh game in the fourth quarter. So we're not built to need a star quarterback. We're built to just have a quarterback that just can do something. No mistakes and
which
something.
which I totally get, and it's true. It's true. Our defense has been amazing, but many Jet fans may agree with me. I want that great quarterback play.
Of
I
course.
want that star quarterback.
Of
Like I just
course.
want. We haven't had it. Like so many teams have great quarterback play. Like I joked about this with my Giant fans years ago. You remember all my Giant fan friends that were crapping on Eli, and they loved. I love this with them. They love to pretend like it didn't happen, like they have amnesia. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. We always thought Eli Manning was great. No. For the last couple of years, you shat all over him. For the last couple of years, you said that he sucked and you wanted to move on from him. He's a quarterback that consistently put up 4,000 yards a season. We haven't had that since Joe Namath, the only guy who's ever done that. If Eli Manning were a Jets quarterback, 2 Super Bowl, he would be heralded as the great Eli Manning that walked the earth and saved us Jet fans with 2 Super Bowl wins. So it's crazy. Franchises like that discard him. Like toward the end of his career, like forget him because they've had great quarterback play for so long. We're starving for it, man. So again, I think it's part of the reason why I want Zach Wilson to be so great because we deserve that. He has all those tools to be that. So this reset is really important. And, Robert Saleh mentioned, and it's a big thing you mentioned as well, he did emphasize the fact that the intent is to make sure Zach gets back on the football field at some point this year. He said, when that is, I'll make the decision. I'm going to take it day by day. But like you mentioned, if Mike White's killing it, We're winning. If we're winning, you don't think about changing the quarterback when you're in the playoffs and you're winning. So I totally agree with you on that take. That I think that if Mike White's winning, that it's not even an option that
Yeah,
they
if
would
he's if
consider
he's not
bringing
if
Zach
he's
back.
not throwing interceptions, let's say he's not throwing interceptions, and let's say he's getting over 200 yards passing a game. He's not coming out. He's just simply not going to come out. There's no way. They just showed by benching Zach they want to win this season. It's clear as day. They said, "Hey, holy cow, this happened sooner than we thought, but we can win. Like we could be a threat to anyone on any given day." They believe that now. There's no possible way they're benching anybody that's playing well. If White comes in and he's throwing over 200 yards a game and he's being efficient and he's not throwing picks, they're not benching him.
And not only that, we
It's
talked
simply not
about,
going to do it.
yeah, and not only that, we talked about the locker room, right? Like that was the biggest thing. And that was my big take as well. That his play was atrocious, but the lack of accountability was what made it worse. That just compounded it. And
Yeah.
that was infinitely worse because there were even rumors, like we were hearing, there were rumors that Zach didn't think he was the problem in the locker room. And I'm like, oh my God, with everything going so great, that's literally how a rift happens. Like the defensive guys that were interviewing after the game, they were not happy. Sauce was saying stuff like this only happens in a video game. And even Garrett, poof, a rookie guy, he was saying some stuff. He was not happy. That's not good when your rookie emerging superstar has
Right.
got things to say. That's really
Yeah.
not good at all.
He's probably frustrated because he knows, and Zach doesn't trust this or understand this. Garrett Wilson knows when this guy's a half a step behind me, you might think that's not open enough. If you just put the ball in front of me, it's wide open because he knows what he can do. Like he's sitting there running his route going, just throw me the ball. I'll catch it. Like he believes in himself. He knows what he's capable of doing. So he's probably so frustrated. He's just like, throw the ball, like it's so hard not to say it. Like imagine how much discipline it took for him to just not go in front of the press and say, this kid just won't throw me the ball. Like it's probably taking every bit an ounce of restraint
He only had
because he
like
knows that he
three
can do it.
targets in the whole game, I believe.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably going crazy. And the tape, if you look at the tape, he's NFL open. He's not college open, but fine. No, you're not supposed to be college open. He's NFL open. He's got a half step.
Yeah, that was the big thing with Zach. And people showed that. I mean, it was obvious. They showed the open receivers. And I figure again, you wonder, is that just an inability to go through reads and progressions? Is he just legitimately not seeing it in the field or doesn't have the anticipation needed, like you just said, to trust his receiver? Like, okay, he's here with the corner, but I know that if I put it up top, he's good. Like you just don't. I don't know what it is, and that's why I think again, Solid is nailing it. That there's a disconnect. There's a major disconnect happening somewhere. Something is horribly wrong is basically what's being said. Something is wrong. This is not the Zach Wilson we know. Let's pause it and put it on timeout before it compounds. And that's the point. Like, again, I feel like if we were losing, they would have left him out there. But I think this is a good move because if he had continued to do what he was doing, we've seen quarterbacks do irreparable damage to themselves.
Yeah, that's true. That's why that's another good reason, and it's more defensive why you give him the reset. So, and if he does get to come back in, you also gave him the opportunity to like maybe we save him from that damage. It's a real thing. I know people joke about it with the I see ghosts from Sam Darnold. It's a real thing. It's game trauma is a real thing. These quarterbacks get beat up too much, they lose confidence, and they could never get it back. It's like a flinch, and you can't have a flinch when you're a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, and like Shadow points out, shout out to all you guys. Let me know what you're thinking. Like, let me know your thoughts. He points out this will be tough. Zach has a 5-2 record. If we lose games with White, this could hurt Salah, but I think he made a solid decision. The
Yeah.
decision felt great just in that, again, what he said. What he said was perfect. That was literally, I gained 1,000% more confidence and belief. And I thought I already believed a lot in him already. Gained so much more just from reading that. Just absolutely loved it. But that's an excellent point you make that Zach was winning games against quality defenses. And I pointed that out. That, before this game had happened, he was 5-1 against the best defenses and best secondaries in the NFL. And he's a young kid. He wasn't doing anything great, but he was playing mistake-free football for the longest time. And again, this is not counting that last game because that was just That was insanity. Even before that, the Patriot game, I was like, well, he made a bunch of key mistakes, like everyone's pointing out, but he threw for over 350 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. If he could just clean up those mistakes, Garrett had 100 yards. Conklin had close to 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. I was like, this is some really promising stuff. But this last game, it just changed. It changed everything. Like, even for me, I was like, what I saw, it wasn't even like NFL level. That last game, it wasn't even watching NFL level quarterback play. Like, the numbers, I refuse to even bring them up because I brought them up in the past and they are rough. So this really does seem like the right thing. So, like, appreciate, all you guys in the chat. Keep it simple points out. There's a reason Strevler's on the practice squad. A lot of people were wanting Strevler, saying Strevler. But like you're pointing out, keep it simple. And we have to remember this. Strevler was playing against third string guys. Even what
Not
we call
even.
fourth. I was going to say, actually,
Not
even what we
even.
call, I was about to say, yeah, even what we call fourth string guys would even make the team. Chris Strevler was playing mainly against guys that aren't even on an NFL roster. We can't put them in the same conversation as Joe Flacco, who literally has a Super Bowl ring, and what Mike White is bringing to the table. So, I mean, is it possible Chris Strevler could be the guy if given the opportunity? I mean, it's possible. It's definitely possible, but they're not looking at him, in my opinion, in the same light. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, you don't. The problem with Strevler is there is always the outside possibility. Nothing is cement.
Yeah, you never know.
Nothing. You never know,
Brady was a
right?
seventh round
We
pick, right?
should
Or sixth
right,
round pick, whatever
right.
it
We
is.
should have learned that from Victor Cruz, right? I mean, we had a running back too that went to New England and then San Diego, and I'm forgetting his name at this second. Guys that we had that were great in preseason, at the end of those games. And the problem is you have a certain amount of roster spots, you have a certain amount of room, and you also have if right now we stunk and we were 2-8, you might say, well, I guess they could just mess around and put them in and see what they had if they liked what they saw in practice.
Yeah,
But
or like keep Zach Wilson in. That was my thought.
we're in playoff contention. We can't stick a guy in that's never played an NFL snap, that played in Canada when you're in playoff contention. That's crazy. You just can't do it. So, do I say it's impossible that Strevler could be good? No. He could end up being the big, amazing, incredible story that's unbelievable that people tell forever, right? I mean, you never know. But guess what? The opportunity to find that out is not there because the odds that he's that guy, the odds that story happens is 1 out of what, 100? I mean, it's like it doesn't happen. It happens so rarely. It happens, but so rarely. You can't play that experiment during a playoff run. You
Exactly.
just
Yeah. If
can't
it
do
wasn't the
it.
playoffs, you can roll the dice. Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly what I was at the point even totally agreeing with that, where I was like, if they announced Joe Flacco as the quarterback, I get it. Like, again, not saying he's not a statue back there. Like, that dude, he needs the best offensive line he can get. He is a freaking statue. But he is playoff proven and Super Bowl proven. So I was like, I kind of was like even leaning toward maybe it should be Joe Flacco. But man, I'm very interested with Mike White because again, this kid has a lot of potential, and that's why I want to bring up again all your guys' comments. Just absolutely great. Keep bringing it. Keep letting me know what you guys think. Love all of it. He points out part of Mike White's problem was the interceptions last year. Was the receivers' inability to separate. I'll bet you won't be a problem this year. I was kind of going to say the same thing. That's a big factor. He didn't have Garrett Wilson last year. He didn't have Garrett Wilson, which is a guy you could just put it anywhere near. And Corey Davis was injured a lot. He's coming back right now. Mims wasn't one of his targets. So this is a different wide receivers that he's playing with. And also, you mentioned the interceptions. Again, I remind me of, that first take I had. His awful games were against and again, you have to look at it like a rookie playing. It was his first games ever. His first game that he played came against the Patriots. They always seem to have our number. Look what they've done to Zach. They always seem to do that. He's had terrible games. Literally, these last games, the games where we want to vomit are against the Patriots. And the Bills, as of recently, again, we kicked their ass last, and that's what's great. Our defense has been amazing. But that 45-17 game, when it happened to the Bills, we were like, it's the Bills. We get it. And that was his 4 interception game. So if we take out those 2 games, because again, he only played 4. He's a young kid, first games ever. for a small sample size, if we look at just those two against not those two opponents that tend to always have our number, then Mike White has an 82% completion percentage and an almost 64% completion percentage. He has 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He averaged an over 100-yard rating in both of those games. So there's promise there, especially with all the talent on this team. Again, you know me. I always like to get hyped. I don't want to, take my expectations too high, but I'm like, man, he has all the intangibles. He's a 5th-round pick. He's shown a lot of promise. He hasn't played that much. The defense is killing it. Maybe it's all there. I mean, look at the Eagles that year, right? They've proven you can win a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback. They have proven that. It's been proven you can win a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but who knows,
Yeah,
right?
well, look, this is not a situation where, unfortunately, Zach was, even at his best, keeping us in the games, not making horrible mistakes. Like he was 5-2. We won 5 games because one time he actually bailed us out with Pittsburgh. The other times he did well enough. It wasn't great. I'm not criticizing him. I love him. I felt he was getting better and slowly progressing a little bit, but it wasn't great.
Well, his last
And
game deserves criticism.
right, well, yeah, his last game deserves criticism.
All the
but,
criticism in the
but the
world.
5 wins, people complaining, oh, he didn't really earn it. Look, no one take away the Pittsburgh game. That was his best game as far as the fourth quarter and what he did and what he showed he's capable of. But when you look at those other 4 wins, people can say whatever they want about him. He only threw for 150 yards. The reality is he did enough to manage the game and win. Now, the good side of that, if you could say there's a good side, because we both would rather see him play like Mahomes, but like the good side of it is that whoever comes in and plays quarterback for this team right now doesn't have a large pair of shoes to fill. They don't have to do a ton because Zach wasn't doing a ton. They just have to not throw the game away. They have to protect the football.
Mistake-free football, exactly.
Mistake-free football and some efficiency. Like being able to operate the plays that aren't even, I'm not talking about 15 years hit the post perfectly. I'm talking about, we call a screen pass, hit it. You know what I mean? We call
like with Zach in that last game when the receiver's 2 yards, 5 yards in front of you, you don't sell it.
Right. A quick 7-yard out, hit it. The tight end coming across the field, hit it. That's all we're asking.
Doesn't seem like we're asking for much.
Not a lot.
It doesn't feel like you're asking for much, Jeremy.
Right. When Tua was like, when everybody was screaming, he's not good, Tua. Look at the short little passes he's throwing. When people were criticizing Mac Jones last year, look at the short passes he's throwing. That's all we're asking Mike White to do. We're
the bare minimum,
right? All we're doing is to say, do what we were accusing. We were accusing and saying those other quarterbacks aren't really good. They're just in the system. They're just throwing short little passes. Fine. That's all we are asking for right now.
Yeah. It's to be fair. It's like, if you remember, it was the big, hate. And again, we all hate Tom Brady. Got to be clear with that. We all hate Tom Brady. But all the hate that was coming his way was all the people saying he would always just take what the defense gave him. He was the king of the dink and dunk and the dink and dunk and moving the ball 2, 3, 4 yards on you and taking exactly what you're giving him. That's what you want. That's good football. Again, it's not the deep pass, the make something happen. But like you pointed out, our defense has been great. Our defense is playing lights out. All you need to do is take what the defense is giving you. And maybe for Zach Wilson, that's taking a bite of humble pie because it seems like he wants to find that huge play, which we love. But even Tom Brady, who again, even saying he's like the greatest makes me want to vomit all over the computer screen. Like I just want to just awful. But as being one of the greatest, arguably the greatest, he takes what the defense gives you. That's what you do. You take what the defense gives you, and that's how you win the game. When you force things at the NFL level, things go horribly, horribly wrong.
Well, yeah, if anybody watched the Monday night game, if anybody watched Jimmy G, and I'm not screaming, bringing Jimmy G.
He does. No, he's excellent at doing like Brady did and taking what the defense gives him.
Watch the game. Yeah, well, watch the game that Jimmy G had. Even Matt Castle, I think it was, the year that Brady was hurt. The Patriots still went 11-5. That's because of really good coaching and Mac Jones and the Patriots making the playoffs last year, even though he was a rookie. That just goes to the coaching and putting a quarterback in a situation where they don't have to do too much, right? And that's what we need to do for Mike White. Put him in a situation where we're not asking him to do too much.
I couldn't agree more. So, shout out to all you guys in the chat. Shadow points out Elijah Moore in the slot could really open things up with Robinson and Carter, get the running game going. But they need holes in the O-line to dominate. Man, that right side of the O-line, when they brought Dan Feeney in, you guys know I've told you guys how I feel about Cedric Aboyhi. I have never been a fan of Aboyhi. If you look what he did prior to this year, I hated it. I was like, I thought they were just bringing him in as a body. I never thought he was going to be starting. Aboyhi next to Feeney, dude, my joke was like, you're better off just not having them there and putting in an extra tight end just to give yourself like receiving and more options because they're not doing anything. So Nate Herbig should be playing. I think it's important to point out that Connor Hughes said I think it was like a week or two ago that Nate Herbig, they kind of insinuated that that he's going to be kind of banged up throughout the whole rest of the season, that he's never really going to be 100, which kind of sucks to hear. But if he can play, he's better than Dan Feeney. And I think they said, Max Mitchell isn't back yet, but I think we saw Fant today. I think we saw Fant.
They're very close. So here's what we're looking at. I believe either Max Mitchell or George Fant will be back by Minnesota. Possibly, very strong possibility,
but not by Chicago. We got to keep rolling.
No. I don't think they're going to see either one this game, but I think that by Minnesota we have a really good shot at it. Right? Here's the thing that we can't forget: not only do we get Herbig back, but because he's banged up, if he's not as effective, or if he gets hurt right away again, this is what everyone's forgetting. After this week, I believe by the Minnesota game, Dr. Blocker, LDT, will be ready. He'll be in football shape or ready to go.
He might be ready to go Minnesota week.
Right, for added depth. So, I mean, look at the turnaround. And if we are just 2 to 3 weeks away from Fant and Max Mitchell, definitely one of them, if not both, Herbig and I think it's LDT, right? Dorvent.
LDT, yeah. It's
LDT.
Duvernay Tardif.
So that's 4 guys that come ahead of.
Which we need because that right side is. Oh.
Right. So, everything is going to change for us.
But we still got to worry about this week, though. I'm still worried about this week.
Well, we got to beat Chicago. We cannot let this one get away, right? Maybe we get some relief against Minnesota, and then after that, moving forward, we might be really strong again on the offensive line. And don't forget, I know the Breece Hall thing sucks, but with a decent offensive line, getting those guys back, having a George Fant back or a Max Mitchell back, having Herbig in there, right, or LDT in there, having the combination of those guys back in, Michael Carter is a really good running back. He's very good. He's not legendary. He's not Henry. He's not franchise changing like Breece Hall is, but he's really good. We were talking about him being a top 12 NFL back. When he gets experience last year.
Like you said, don't sleep on James Robinson, man.
Right. James Robinson is really
good. Really good year in 2020.
Yeah, he's had over 1,000 yards rushing in his rookie year or his sophomore year on a crappy Jacksonville team. So these are real running backs. You give them good blocking, our running game is going to come back again.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. And the offensive line, it's Nate Herbig not at 100% is still better than a Dan Feeney. So the question is he healthy enough to play? They kind of insinuated that he's ready to roll. They kind of said that today, that Herbig's rolling. So it looks like he'll be good to play, and that's huge. I'd love for him to play again. It will make Aboyhi better because there'll be better guard play next to him. And like you mentioned, Max Mitchell or Fant will be back. If they're both healthy, I know how you feel, but my big take has always been, if they're both 100% ready to go, I want Max, man. I want Max Mitchell all day. That kid looked unbelievable as a 4th-round pick. Not supposed to start. He was not supposed to play in the beginning of the season. He was supposed to, sit a year, potentially redshirt and learn. Sure. Man, he looked great. He was holding his own against quality edge rushers in this league. He held his own week 1 against Justin Houston. He held it week 2 against Myles Garrett. In fact, week 2, he personally set up the game-winning block that let Joe Flacco hit Garrett Wilson in the end zone to win the game in Cleveland. Max Mitchell, the rookie, the guy you didn't expect to start. So I know George Fant, brings reliability. I want Max, man. I feel like Max has shown already as a fourth round rookie, blocking some of the best edge rushers in the league. I want him out there. Him, Herbig, and obviously AVT's not healthy right now, but those three guys, those are the three guys that this offensive line, in my opinion, needs to be built around. Wherever you want to put them, however you want to work it is fine, but those are three fantastic young pieces along our offensive line that we need to build this offensive line around. AVT, Nate Herbig, and Max Mitchell. So I want him in there right when he's healthy, man. I want to see Max Mitchell lighting people up.
Yeah, look, I think that it's hard. We're going to be, it's not a normal personnel decision where like we're going to have weigh in based on preseason and what we've seen in their careers. And this is one's better than this one, because the reality is they're both coming back from injuries. We don't know how healthy Fantony is. We don't know how healthy Mitchell is. Is he completely 100%? So I'm going to trust. I understand rooting for Max because I love the direction he was going. If it's Fant over Mitchell, I'm going to trust that there's a reason, that he's healthier, he's more fit to play right now, that Max Mitchell is the future. But, I'm going to trust whatever decision they make because we're not in camp and we can't see what they're doing.
And you know what? That's totally fair. That's
Yeah,
totally fair.
yeah.
And it comes down to, again, that fact that I've always, felt that way about Joe Douglas, and Robert Saleh's really proven he's the guy. He says all the right things. He does all the right things. He's built this culture. All these guys came here because of him. See, I feel like, they've earned that. If we feel like this culture change is happening, these are the guys, then we need to, I agree with that, man. I would love to see Max Mitchell personally, but if they chose George Fant, he's not a bad player. He's not a bad player by any means.
But
so if they chose George Fant, there's got to be a reason.
And if they choose them, I honestly believe it's because of what they're seeing. Like they don't. I think it'll be based because they want to win. They showed they want to win.
They see things we don't see.
Right.
Of course. That's why they're getting paid the big bucks.
They're going to look at the two of them and say, who gives us the better chance to win? 100%. I trust them. Now, the beautiful thing about Max Mitchell, not only, fourth round pick and year to develop, and who knows if he'll even develop and ever be NFL level. And then he comes in and he plays so much better than any of us expect. The beautiful thing about that is that allows us to not necessarily be handcuffed to pay Fant $15 million or whatever he's going to want, or whatever he was going to want, just in case another team offers him something like that. What a big deal that is for an organization, that we get to fill in a spot for the next 3 years after this without worrying about high salary.
And you're freeing up that money for Aaron Rodgers.
And you're freeing up that extra money. But what a tremendous bullseye that is for Joe Douglas. Max Mitchell coming in and being able to be our starting tackle for the next 3 years and then beyond, and doing it at a high level is so much bigger than what just the fact that we get a good right tackle for 3 years. It's the fact that he's free, cost us nothing. So that's like tremendous for the future few years of this organization. Max Mitchell is gold. We struck gold with this kid.
It's Joe Douglas, man.
Then
he knows what he's doing.
And then obviously before he got hurt, but when he comes back, the explosion of AVT, because he was good last year as a rookie developing, but we didn't know year two, right from the beginning, he's going to be one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL.
Yeah.
So he panned out. So we're going to next. I mean, I know we got to talk about this year, and this is the year we're trying to compete. I'm excited that we get these guys back, but it's hard not to think ahead. It's hard not to think, oh my God, it's going to be AVT and Max Mitchell, and maybe Becton comes back, right? Maybe he's going to come in great shape and stay healthy and be that guy that was when he was a rookie. Can you imagine that? And then we still have control of Dwayne Brown. How good we could be on the offensive line. It's absolutely terrifying for other teams.
No, I couldn't agree more, man. And like Shadow Den points out, Elijah Moore in the slot. I feel like it's important to point out, and again, things being taken out of context. Before the last game, it was like kind of a thing that everyone had said. It was official. Elijah Moore was moving solely to the slot. Robert Saleh clarified that. He did say that that wasn't the case, that he will play the slot, but he's not just playing the slot, that we're not designating him just to there. The goal is to get him open more, and based on what we currently have, that's the best place for him. And we know that is. Elijah Moore was drafted because he was one of the best slot receivers in football. That's why he went 34th overall. He was literally one of the best slot receivers in all of football. So, I think Robert Saleh saying that is important because he's saying, that he could be outside potentially, but we know his best fit is on the inside. He's not saying he's exclusively going to be there, but man, this receiver core with Corey Davis back, with Mims, what he's done, him staying active, it's exciting, man. And you mentioned you got Michael Carter, James Robinson in the backfield. We mentioned all those wide receivers. This is a very, very talented offense. And I think, again, that's what made Robert Saleh make this decision, that Zach Wilson clearly couldn't do it with all this talent. Let's see what Mike White can do with all this talent.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting. I think there's a chance. There's a strong possibility, and an argument could be made that this is going to be the greatest thing that happened for Elijah Moore. It might just be that Streveler, that Mike White is ready to drop back and throw the ball. Like, maybe he has less fear in throwing the ball to these guys. Maybe he's going to read it as open. I think Zach was playing a little scared. He's afraid of turning the ball over, and it might lead to a little bit some interceptions from Mike White. But that's okay. It's okay to have some interceptions. All great quarterbacks and quarterbacks who play well and have touchdown passes have interceptions. That's part of it. You can't, to not throw interceptions, be afraid to throw the ball and make completions. So this might be an explosion for Garrett Wilson, for Elijah Moore, for both of them. We don't know. Elijah Moore coming out of the slot, this kid, Mike White, if you watch him, if anything, from last year, he likes to get rid of the ball quickly. So you tell me, when they line up in an 11 personnel and you got Elijah in the slot, you tell me with that lineup, who's going to get, if you're a quarterback who takes 2 steps back and gets rid of the ball, who has the best chance of being open? I mean, to me, it's Elijah in the slot.
I mean, it depends, and that's the point.
I'm not saying every time.
When Corey Davis was playing, then him and Garrett were killing it on the outside. Those two guys killing it out there.
Yeah,
I love that Corey's
Garrett Wilson breaks ankles, so and that's why I say this might be the explosion of Garrett Wilson as well. Because remember how he did against Cleveland with Flacco throwing the ball to him. So this might be an explosion for Garrett Wilson, but I think it could be the rebirth of Elijah. Finally, we could see this kid do something on the field.
No, I agree, man. And that's I think, again, part of that decision where they did emphasize, again, he's not exclusively playing the slot. I love how he said it. He said, all of our receivers are interchangeable. We purposely have them because they can line up anywhere. That's what you like. He said he likes about this offense. Anybody can be anywhere. That's the point. But it makes sense. Like I mentioned earlier, in the season, they clearly favored bigger bodied receivers on the outside. And it wasn't saying Elijah Moore doesn't have a good catch radius. It's not the same as Garrett Wilson's, and it's not the same as Corey Davis's. It's just not even close. So it makes sense. And those two guys, again, I feel like Corey Davis being back is really big, like really big. If you got him and Garrett on the outside, Elijah in the slot, you got Mims coming in at times. That's a lot of weapons. That is a lot of weapons. And you mentioned Mike White. Again, you can't stress enough. This is a 5th-round quarterback that never really got his opportunity, right? We've seen guys, not saying he's going to be great, but he had that really good Cincinnati game. That really, really good Cincinnati game where he threw for 45 completions, had over 45 attempts, had over 400 yards, had an over 80% completion percentage, even though he had 45 attempts. It was a really impressive game. So he's a 5th-round pick, only played 4 games. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do on this new offense with, like you said, all of these weapons around him, all of this offensive talent.
And we didn't even talk about Conklin.
And that's the point. We still got the tight ends and CJ Uzama.
Yeah,
he's still chilling back there too.
Yep.
But so Shadow points this out, man. It's talking about next year. Because again, that's why the decision to bench Zach for Robert Saleh was, again, this is a winning team. We're a winning team. We're in the playoffs right now. We have to keep that. We're the last team in the playoffs. What can we do to stay there? But if we look forward, it's interesting to think about. Obviously, we're not moving on from Zach. That's anyone saying that is out of their mind. We're not moving on from the kid. He's staying on the roster. The question, like Jeremy said, do they have full faith if we don't see him again? Because Mike White's playing well. Do they have full faith to keep him, as the starter, or do they bring in a veteran guy? There's so many interesting names, and people bring up Derek Carr. I think it was Dom who pointed out earlier. There's a chance Derek Carr could just wind up a free agent. Like that's even a possibility, or maybe they trade him, potentially just to get a draft pick because they want to, control the rights of where he goes. Be interesting to see, but that's one. I don't know how you feel. That's one I don't hate. A lot of people don't love Derek Carr as much, but I feel like he is a talented quarterback.
Well, Derek Carr is definitely, again, it's funny. Jet fans are funny because you could hate like the Jet fans who don't like Derek Carr. Name a better quarterback we've had since that 1 year with Brett Favre, and then minus that, Chad Pennington. I mean, the bottom line is we sit there and we go, and we'll judge these quarterbacks that we think of getting, but let's remember what have we had at quarterback? This team has not had a quarterback ever, forever. So it's, any of these guys that you name, here's a Baltimore Ravens fan. The backup quarterback for the Ravens, Huntley. He's actually really good. If you watched last year when Lamar Jackson was out, I wouldn't mind have that kid in our camp competing for a spot. I mean, we really haven't had good quarterbacks. So I don't know how a Jet fan can complain about any of these guys coming into our locker room. I mean, they're all better than we've seen in a really long time. My biggest complaint about it is only in my heart, I'm not ready to totally close the book on Zach.
Oh, I don't think any of us are. And I think I totally agree, man. We all know what Zach can be. And me of all, I love this kid. I totally believe the things I saw in college, I did not see in that last game. And that makes sense with everything Salah said. We need a reset, right? Like Salah said, we need a reset. We're not seeing what we're supposed to be seeing. We want to get back to Zach being the kid that we fell in love with in the draft process. Get all just great answers. Absolutely great answers. That's what you want to hear. Is he going to do that? We need to see that. So he's going to get that reset. He's going to get that opportunity. But I wanted to point out and throw Aaron Butler's comment on the screen because, again, the Baltimore Ravens are so good because of Lamar Jackson. Like, I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan. I really am. If there's a possibility the Jets can get Lamar, I'm in. He's young. He's unbelievably talented. He's not just the fastest, most athletic quarterback in the league. He's a pocket quarterback. I've been saying it in this rookie year that everyone's saying he's not a pocket quarterback. They didn't watch this kid. I watched him because everyone of you knows me, knows that I'm a big ACC football guy. That's why I was on Mekhi Becton as much as I was. I watched him at Louisville as well. I was a really big Lamar Jackson fan. So for the same reasons Aaron Butler's saying, I can't see Lamar Jackson going anywhere. I know people are talking about contract disputes, him not taking the money. It was too low. That is getting done. There is no way he's going anywhere.
It's all negotiating tactics. Lamar Jackson is a Baltimore Raven. And
Without
I'm probably about 95% sure of that because we've seen strange things happen. So I'm going to say I'm 95% sure that Lamar Jackson is Raven. For any Jet fan who's sitting there criticizing Lamar Jackson and saying we wouldn't want him, are you effing kidding me?
I love Lamar, man. I love him. I loved him as a rookie. I knew that he was my guy in 2018. I wanted him with the third pick. I knew it wasn't going to happen though.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is fact, but I don't know. I mean, I think it could be argued that if Lamar Jackson, let's say for some freaky reason, had a fight with the Ravens and the Jets somehow got him, I don't believe it's going to happen at all. But just in a hypothetical fantasy world scenario, if Lamar Jackson put on a Jet uniform, and I might piss some people off by saying this, the greatest Jets quarterback in history, as far as talent, would be walking in our locker room with, playing that position. I would like someone to name a Jets quarterback that you're going to say, now we can go back to Ken O'Brien in his prime, but Ken O'Brien got hurt really early in his career. It was never the same after the first 2 to 3 years of his career, right? Testaverde was very efficient, but he's no Lamar Jackson. Chad Pennington also got hurt. Good pocket passer, no Lamar Jackson. And Brett Favre at 37 when we had him, no Lamar Jackson. So I don't even want to talk about Joe Namath. So Lamar Jackson, to me, if he walked into our locker room as the Jets quarterback, is the greatest quarterback we've ever had in our franchise. I might stir up a lot of
I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan, so it's hard for me to. This kid is unbelievable. I mean, in the draft process, I knew, man. Like, I couldn't believe the disrespect that was going his way. That people were saying he shouldn't be a quarterback, he should be a wide receiver. That was out of Did you not watch this kid play quarterback? He's an excellent quarterback and he can play in the pocket. He chooses to move a lot, but he can throw in the pocket. He can make those throws. He can go. He's had games where they've kept him in the pocket and he's won because of his arm. So yeah, I don't see him being a possibility at all. Like you said, it's all tactics. He is 100% staying with the Baltimore Ravens. Look at it this way. We know Joe Douglas is so great. It's because he came from the Ozzie Newsome school. He learned from one of the greatest GMs ever. And what did Ozzie Newsome do on his way out? He gifted the Ravens Lamar Jackson. We can't forget he knew what he was doing. He said after all those amazing Pro Bowlers from Ed Reed to Ray Lewis, on the way out, one of the greatest GMs, Ozzie Newsome, gifts the Baltimore Ravens with their franchise quarterback of the future. They know what they have in him. There is absolutely, you said, I guess there's 5% because it's possible, but I feel like there's no way. If Lamar Jackson leaves the Ravens, something went insanely wrong there. I just can't see that happening. Well, yeah, and appreciate all your guys' comments. Appreciate all the stuff you guys are saying. Shout out MY Jets FL says Minnesota's defense is weak. Look how great Mac Jones looks against them. Can't wait to see Sauce versus Jefferson. Man, that's the matchup. Man, you right there, bro. You nailed it. That is the matchup because Justin Jefferson is the best in the business. Justin Jefferson is looking. I remember just a few weeks ago, they were saying his name with people like Jerry Rice. That doesn't happen. They don't mention Jerry Rice. Yeah. He is playing like the greatest to ever play, and Sauce also looks like the greatest corner to ever play. So it's kind of like that's how you have to look at it. Like the potential greatest wide receiver of all time against the potential greatest cornerback of all time. Like that's literally what we're going to be seeing. Man, that is MY Jets FL. You nailed it, man. That is going to be the matchup of the year. Sauce versus Jefferson.
Yeah, I think that most of my experience, at least with Revis, someone's saying it in the chat, the greatest corner versus the greatest receiver, a lot of times the greatest corner is the one that wins. So it's good. I'm not going to be cocky about that though. That just Jefferson is a very special player. And you cannot play the Minnesota Vikings and think we got this guy taken care of. I don't think I'm not worried about him having a 200-yard, 180-yard dominant 3-touchdown receiving game against us because I don't think one's going to beat the other that badly. But if Sauce is on him, I expect Jefferson to get his catches and to get his wins against Sauce Gardner. Some. But I think that Sauce Gardner will contain him enough and not let him just own us and control the game. So that's what I think Sauce and Reed bring us is no matter how good the receivers are, like Miami, Waddle, and Hill, no matter how good the receivers, I think our secondary will keep them realistic. They're not going to shut them down. I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to shut them down. I'm sitting here saying we'll keep them at bay where it's not ridiculous, where they're not going to just completely take us out of the game and we have no chance to win the game because they're dominating us. And that's what those guys do for us. We're never going to be, I never feel like we're going to be dominated by the other team's wide receivers and not have a chance to win the game.
Yeah, bro, that's going to be an insane matchup. Just the fact that you look at it, like you just said, like all those receivers that are great, they have something that makes them great, right? Stephon Diggs has great speed and great hands. It's not the biggest dude, right? Same with guys like Tyreek Hill. Justin Jefferson is everything. Like it is the same thing like you say with Sauce. Like some guys are great with their man coverage, or great in zone, or great in press. Sauce is great at everything. So that's what I just can't wait, man. This matchup is going to be insane. I think, like you said, it's going to be a lot of back and forth. I think we're going to see Sauce getting the best of him a couple times. I think we're going to see Justin Jefferson making some really good plays a couple of times. I think it's going to be back and forth. It's going to be greatness recognizing greatness, game respecting game. Like the two of them just, it's going to be amazing. Like I literally, like that's honestly one of my most excited aspects of the Minnesota game. Like I'm literally thinking about that Sauce and Jefferson matchup of like how great both of those guys are.
The only way we win that game, in my opinion, is if our defensive line has as good, one of their top 3 games of the year. Like our defensive
They've been
line,
relentless, bro.
Right. But they have to They can't have like by their standard, right? In all the games based on our defensive line standards, they need to have one of their top games of the season. Like it's going to be beyond just as good as they are. It's going to have to they're going to have one of their best games on top of that. Like we're going to have to make Cousins uncomfortable and rush him the entire game.
Bro, we got 6 sacks last week. Like, how crazy is that? Our defense got 6 sacks and 8 TFLs. Man, they're killing it. This pass rush is absolutely relentless. And like we
Yeah,
said, everyone's feasting. Like, even guys like Vinny Curry and Nathan Shepard are getting a piece. Like, everyone's feasting. But the highlights, man.
because
Quinn and,
they
yeah,
all open it up for each other.
they do.
Right?
They
Like,
do.
how many guys are you going to chip? See, if a running back chips someone or a tight end chips somebody, we're going to chip Carl Lawson. Okay, what are you going to do on the other side to Huff or to JJ, whoever's
Exactly.
sitting on the other side? And it's like, so it's impossible to get everybody. And then if you chip on both sides and you try to take out the edges, then you got Quinn and Williams coming up in the middle. So it's absolutely everything we dreamed and wanted to be, and the answer when they said, "Why do the Jets keep stacking up more defensive linemen?" Now you're seeing the answer. It's so you can't neutralize any of them. You can't focus on one and say we're going to take this guy out of the game. You can, but guess what? The other three are going to eat you alive.
Exactly. And that's the other big thing as well that people are, taking account of and noticing. We don't have to blitz that much. Like, we're sending just 4. Like, these guys are playing
Mhm.
so well. Our linebackers can drop back. Like, we don't have to blitz that much. I think, and I forgot, someone pointed out, against Chicago, if Fields is playing, we might need to see more blitz packages. That's a possibility if Fields is playing. But man, these 4 guys feast on their own. You don't need to blitz. And like you mentioned, Quinnen, he's having an all-pro season. Carl Lawson, top of the league in QB hits. Bryce Huff has been unbelievable. I always knew he had a fast get off. I'm a huge Bryce Huff fan. I did not know that Bryce Huff has the fastest get off in the whole league. Like, that's insane. This defense is unbelievable, man. Our pass rush is relentless. So, like Dom points out, he says, if all things are equal, Fant will be at right tackle. I think, like you said, Jeremy, that does make sense. They might look at it as, yeah, Max has been great, but Fant is that veteran. And we're in the playoffs. We want to, keep winning now. But like Keep It Simple points out, Fant won't be back next year. I do believe, man, like you said, Max Mitchell is the guy. And Max Mitchell has looked unbelievable as a 4th-round rookie. So that being the case, I got to agree, Keep It Simple. I don't think, even though George Fant is a quality player, he's a quality offensive lineman, I don't think he returns. And I think what the Jets are going to do, you mentioned Mekhi Becton. Clearly, it hasn't panned out. Maybe next year, we go in with whatever we get from him, we get from him. If he plays great, that's awesome. But we have to have zero expectations for Mekhi. So that being the case, this offensive line, you got Max at right tackle, Herbig, you got AVT. My big thing, and I don't know what you think, I feel like we got to find that blindside left tackle. People say AVT can be it, and I agree. AVT can totally do it. But when AVT's played guard, he's played at a Pro Bowl level. That is more his natural position. And we've seen guys that are the best blindside tackles in the league go first, second, third, because it's a premium position. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Douglas this year, his first pick is one of the top blindside left tackles in the NFL. And then you have the potential to cut Lakin, in my opinion. You got the top rookie blindside left tackle. You got AVT back at left guard. You got McGovern at center. You got Herbig and Max Mitchell. That's not just a sexy offensive line and a good offensive line. That's a young offensive line that's going to be there for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if they used their number one pick on a tackle. I wouldn't be shocked.
But blindside
I
tackle
don't
specifically.
expect it. Yeah, I don't expect it, but I certainly wouldn't be shocked by it. And I certainly expect them to take a blindside tackle somewhere in the draft. Like I think they're going to bring yet another body in for sure. I don't know if they're going to go with the number one because you never know with Joe Douglas because he's a value guy. He goes for the best player. He doesn't do it by position, and he always has a handful of guys that'll be around later. Right? He's proving that he finds these gems a little bit later on. Right? So I but I wouldn't be shocked. Like if we came out there and selected a blindside tackle with the first pick, whatever we pick, let's say we pick at 25 or 24, wherever it is, New York Jets take, and if it's a tackle, I would not be surprised. Like it
Yeah.
wouldn't blow me away and say I
And
can't
people
believe
wonder about AVT, but it's like Lakin, and again, the beauty of Joe Douglas, he just signed Lakin, but just like all these other guys, is an out after 1 year. I'm not saying Lakin's been bad, but he hasn't been a Pro Bowler. He hasn't been what we expected him to be. We expected him to come in and be a Pro Bowler, and he is not that. We know what AVT is. We know how really good Nate Herbig is. Max Mitchell's the future at right tackle. Man, that's how I do this, in my opinion. Love Lakin. He's an amazing dude.
we
He's
can't
such a
cut
nice
Lincoln. We
guy.
can't cut him though. We can't cut him because the
Are you
dead
sure?
cap.
Because
Check it. The dead cap space would be enormous. Like
I was under the
we
impression that
no
there
we
is an
gave
out.
no
I think it's
he got 2 big years guaranteed. We get out the 3rd year, but we can't get out the 2nd year.
so actually no. So I am right. I am right. I mean, they do have a potential out in 2023 because again, Joe Douglas is just genius. It's not the best. You save 17.4 million. You have 8.5 against the cap. So it's much
Oh,
more
it's not as bad
advantageous
as
to
I
cut him.
thought. It's not as
That's what
bad
I
as
was going to
I
say. No, yeah. So I remember because I looked at, again, Joe Douglas, he is the master of
thought.
contracts. I don't know anybody who makes contracts like this dude. He might be the greatest creator of outs and contracts in like the history of football. And here's the point, like Lakin Tomlinson, a guy you just paid, you just gave him a lot of money. Yeah, there's an out in 2023. 2024 is better. You only have a 4 million dead cap, but yeah, there's an out this year. So in my opinion, he hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been what you expect him to be. He's not a Pro Bowl guy. And you mentioned AVT is an all pro. Nate Herbig looks really good. That's what I do, in my opinion. I put AVT back at left guard. You got Herbig and Max Mitchell locking down that right side for years to come. You draft that amazing top blindside tackle, put him next to AVT. We all know how good McGovern can be. And then what you could even do in the 2nd or 3rd round, draft a center to sit behind McGovern for a year or two and possibly learn from him.
I'm not saying that your logic isn't good, like because I believe that Herbig could be a starter. I believe that AVT
I
coming
think
back.
Herbig is a starter, man.
We save money. Like I agree with all of that. But if you ask me what I think the Jets are going to do, I just don't think they're going to see it that way. I think that they're going to keep Lakin 1 more year. That's my guess of what they're going to do. I agree with you that it's certainly worth considering. I don't think it's crazy at all to say, well, we cut Lakin, we saved 17 million, we got Herbig and AVT. I think the one pushback on that is when have we ever our offensive line we have the worst luck with them. They get hurt all the time. So maybe for 1 more year, we say until we know we're getting rid of this injury thing that just seems to be keep hitting our offensive line. Maybe we just suck it up, pay Lincoln 1 more year, have Herbig there as that insurance policy of a really good starting quality kind of guard ready to come in if need be. I could see it going either way. It's hard for me to imagine the team cutting Lincoln, but then at the same time, there's a reason that JD structured the contract that way. You're right.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
He
That's
wouldn't have
exactly
structured it
what
that
I'm
way.
thinking.
He wouldn't have structured that
And
way if
here's
he
the way I'm looking
done
at
it
it
now.
too. Like Lakin, and again, I do want to stress this, and I point this out all the time. The way PFF disrespects CJ Mosley is criminal. PFF is not the end all be all. They are not the end all be all for rankings and gradings and all that. But when I look at Lakin Tomlinson, I say, okay, here's a guy that struggled for the first few weeks in the season, started to play average, and is now playing above average. I would say borderline good. So I would put his PFF ranking at, if I had a pick or guess, I would say like a 66. But when I look it up, his PFF ranking is a 50.7. That is atrocious. That is insanely low, like disgustingly low. So I figured he hasn't been that good. PFF's like, this dude sucks. They're giving him a 50.7. So that being the case, yeah, we know what AVT is. Herbig's been really good. I don't know if the Jets do it, but man, that's my offensive line, man. I feel like because again, AVT can play left tackle, but there's a reason we see the best blindside tackles going first overall now. There's a reason for that. They're amazing at that. And that's what I feel like we do. You get one of those amazing guys, put him next to AVT. That's a young duo. On the right side, Nate Herbig and Max Mitchell is also a young duo. You have a young offensive line that is arguably already one of the best in the league.
And
Like,
you save $17 million. And if
exactly.
I feel a lot better about that. Like if that's how it unfolded, I'm a fan of depth with LDT. So I'd be really happy if Dr. Blocker was on the team as the backup for Herbeck and for AVT.
Oh, without a doubt. Oh,
Like
that's
in
a
other
great
words,
backup guard to
yeah,
have.
like in other words, I don't want to go back into that. That's the one problem. You trade Lincoln. I don't think they cut him. I think they would trade him. You trade Lakin Tomlinson, and I'm not saying you get a ton for him because the team that trades for him has to pay him. But you'll find a team that's desperate for a guard, right? So you do that if you can get anything for him instead of releasing him. But then hopefully you get Dr. Blocker. Maybe maybe third, fourth round, they draft a guard. I mean, who knows, right? But I just want to have depth because I know we have not been able to field an offensive line that doesn't get hurt like crazy. So we have to prepare and have depth. That's the one thing I would say we would need to do before we parted with Lakin. We would need to know what's the plan and how are we going to still have depth in case Herbeck or AVT goes down.
Yeah, and that's important. You always need to have depth along the line, and you build that. I mean, Lakin is very expensive. So the way you look at it is if he's not that Pro Bowl guy you thought he was, LDT, that's perfect depth. That's exactly what you're talking
Right.
about. A veteran that you can, yeah.
And 17 million, if it really frees up $17 million. Wow.
No, it does. Yeah, and I remember that. It frees up almost 17.4, and it's only 8.5 dead cap. That's not bad. And again, you look at that like that's a guy Joe Douglas just paid big money to. Like that's just again contract ninja. Like
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean from that sense, the 17 million would certainly help. I mean, it really gives us a lot more flexibility. What would really
Especially
help?
like you said, if you want to bring in a veteran quarterback, which again, obviously this year it's about winning, like we said, but it's about winning. You know, we're in the playoffs right now. We got to keep winning. But next year, it's interesting. If Zach plays again, like there's so many variables. That's the thing. It's like there's so many different variables and possibilities that change everything. If Zach plays again, then you see if he comes out and plays lights out and the reset worked, that's your quarterback. That's if he comes out and he's looking like we saw in the past, really good games. That first Patriot game, minus the mistakes, the reset worked. That's your guy. But if it doesn't, then that's scary. That's really scary. Or if you don't get the opportunity to see him, then you have to raise in that question. Well, do you go in blindly saying, next year we trust that he can be the guy, or do you bring in a veteran and have him maybe sit? There's so many different options. But I think the important thing, like we were talking about before, we're in the playoffs right now. We're in the playoffs right now, and we just got to keep that. The most important thing is winning, right? We've said before, the Philadelphia Eagles, we've seen teams literally win the Super Bowl with backup quarterbacks. It's very possible. You can do that. It's not outside the realm of possibility. So we're in the playoffs right now. We got to keep it. We got to keep going. And who knows, right? This could be the first time we made the playoffs in 12 years. That's the story to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's what's going to cure all of this with all the negativity and what's going on right now is someone said a friend of mine thinks it's going to take, we're going to have to win twice. It's not true. If we win on Sunday, it's not going to totally erase everything that happened, but everyone's going to be happy again. If we win on Sunday, we're out of the cellar. We're ahead of New England. We have to assume Miami's going to win, but Buffalo seems a lot more human. They almost lost to Detroit, right? So, and everything is within our own control. We control our own destiny because we play both Buffalo and Miami again. So it's not like we have no control. We control our destiny completely. The only team we don't have control over our own destiny is with New England. So if we beat Chicago on Sunday, we now officially have complete control of our own destiny within our division because we play Miami and Buffalo, and we're a game ahead of New England, which means we control our own destiny officially. And the longer you can get, the deeper you can get into the season and control your own destiny, the more and more exciting it becomes. So if we jump to 7-4, beat Chicago, jump to 7-4, a lot of this anger and all the things that have been going on in Jets world and Jets Twitter this week will become a lot better The only thing is if White plays really well, then we're gonna have a new thing everyone's talking about, and that's gonna be Mike
Hey,
F.
and you know what? Mike White, we pointed it out when Mike White had that amazing game against Cincinnati, right? Where like even me, I was like, don't take this as I don't still love Zach. This is back then. I was like, don't take this that I don't still love Zach Wilson, but man, what could Mike White be? Like,
Yeah,
right? Because he was a young kid who had never played before. He had never gotten an opportunity. And that's still kind of what he is. He's only played 4 games, right? We're judging, like we said, we're judging Zach Wilson, a second overall pick who's played about 20 games now. Mike White is a 5th round pick who's only played 4. He's only played in 4 games. And like we said, if we take out that New England and Buffalo game, which are 2 teams that the Jets tend to struggle against, they tend to always have our quarterback's number. Well, then there's some promising stats. There's some really promising stats from Mike White. So again, this team is so talented. I don't want to get too excited, but who knows, man? Who knows where Mike White can take us? Who knows?
look,
I'm just gonna grab some water quick. If you could just,
yep,
yeah,
any,
let them know what you're
any,
thinking.
yep. No, anything's possible. And Dom C, I was gonna say that before, Dom C. You taught me all about setting the edge. I think JJ is really good at setting the edge, right? So I think that does that mean we're going to see more snaps from JJ because that's his strength? I don't know about Huff. Maybe he sets the edge fine because I know that Huff gets there, he gets home, but against Fields, it's not just getting home; it's how you get home, right? You have to seal the edge. You absolutely have to set the edge. You have to come from the correct angle. You cannot cut inside to get to him because he will bounce out to the outside and he will burn you. So I'm nervous about that because if we showed any vulnerability at all, not in the last few weeks, I think we got a lot better at it. But the first 5 games of the year, there was a lot of examples of us not setting the edge. So I think that we have to play like we've been lately in the last few weeks. We have to set the edge against Fields, or he's going to eat us alive.
Yeah, what's interesting, I apologize. I missed
That's
everything
fine.
you said. So if I repeat it, totally apologize.
No, I was talking about setting the edge and how important it is, and how good JJ is at it.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
How about the fact that JJ and Michael Clemens, man? How exciting was it to see both of those rookie guys simultaneously collapsing the pocket? And JJ almost got there on that sack that Michael Clemens got. JJ almost got there. I mean,
It's
man,
beautiful.
Carl Lawson, Bryce Huff, Jermaine Johnson, Michael Clemens. I love our edge rushers. And then you got JFM who can playing on the inside, sometimes playing on the outside, but I want to keep him on the inside. You got him, Quinnen. We haven't even seen Solomon Thomas that much. Like I was excited about seeing him, and we're not even seeing him that much because everyone else is playing so well.
It's exciting. It's fun
But
to
man,
watch.
Fields is banged up. That's the thing, though. So like they said, I don't think they announced it yet. He's questionable still,
He's
right? I think
questionable.
he's still.
He's
Yeah,
questionable. The whole thing is really stupid.
it's funny though.
If
Actually,
I
did you
was a
hear the
Bears fan,
conflicting reports?
if I was a Bears fan, I'd be so pissed.
You heard
I
that,
would
right?
be
Like how crazy? How can literally like Ian Rappaport and Pro Football Focus literally give different reports on the same injury, and then the team comes out and says a third thing?
They're lying through their teeth. They're all lying. But the reality is, I made a video about this morning. The reality is, it's ridiculous. You're 3-7. It's your franchise guy. Are they out of their mind? And I'm not saying this as a guy, as a Jet fan who wants to not see him in the game. I'm saying this as a football fan and somebody with common sense. You're 3-7. This is your franchise. I don't care if it's not his throwing shoulder. You take him out. You put him in that game. And there's no way they have a weak offensive line. Do they know who Michael Clemens is? I
What
mean,
I
you
was
have a
going to
guy like
ask was, does
you
Andrew
have
Luck
Michael.
sound familiar to
Yeah,
these people?
it's
Do they
so
not remember what
stupid.
happened with him? Right? Remember, bad
Yeah.
offensive line, continuing to throw a young quarterback out there. Do they not remember Andrew Luck?
If
Like,
Michael Clemens gets a hold of Justin Fields and throws him down on that shoulder, I mean, they are going to go down as the biggest joke management of any team in the NFL. I mean, there'll be a bigger joke than Saturday taking over the Colts. Because how do you at 3-7? How do you even entertain the idea of putting Justin Fields on that field?
What's crazy is some were saying it was dislocated. Like that's how
I
bad some of the
know.
reports were. So if it's even in the realm of possibility that that's the case, you're right. That's insane. That's absolutely you're playing with fire with your franchise.
For
Like this
no
is the guy
reason.
exactly. It's like
For
you
no
said. It's not
reason.
like you're the Jets and you're in the playoffs. You're done. In case no one told the Chicago Bears, it's over. It's over. It's done. Tap out.
Yeah. Right? Washington did it with RG3. I'll never forget it. He was limping and they kept him in the game. It was a wild card game. I said, "Yeah, but they're not going to win the Super Bowl." And everyone said, all my fraternity brothers, "Oh, you're an idiot, man. You don't do this is football. You got to man up. They're in the playoffs." It's like, okay, was it worth it? Cost the guy his career. He never
Dude,
came back
Robert
the same.
Griffin III, he's like the $6 million man. He was more metal than man after a
Right.
certain point in that
But like
knee.
if they would
That
have right, if they would have taken him out and he never plays that game, maybe he heals up and he gives you a few years. Look, it's
maybe.
he was bound to eventually crash because if you're so reliant on the running game and you're going to run like a running back, eventually, we see running backs how fast they deteriorate. Well, that's the problem with the running quarterback that runs too much. It's only going to last, like you have a running back's lifespan.
Yeah, and then shout out to Vern Vern. Vern Vern points out, I don't think Fields will play. That seems like, again, like me and Jeremy are saying, it seems like the intelligent take. Like some are saying, like, I love it. Some are saying his shoulder's fine. It's a weak, what do they call it? A day-to-day injury. And then someone else is like, it's dislocated. He's not fine. If he doesn't play and Trevor Simeon's the quarterback, shutout? Like, I don't want to get too excited, but I'm like, do we whoop the Bears' ass? Do we shut them out? Like, even if like Mike White doesn't have a great game, do we win 9-0?
I mean, to me, it's like, it could be gamesmanship by them. It could be why let them prepare for Fields. But preparing for Fields means what does it really mean? It means you're going to prepare to play a lot of zone, so you're facing him. You might have a spy for him, and you're preparing to set the edge. Like you're really coaching your guys to set the edge. Okay, then you throw in Trevor instead, the Simeon guy. You throw him in. What does it really change for the Jets? Even if they wanted, they play zone anyway.
Well, it does
And
change a lot, but Justin
it's not
Fields
like
because
they
he's
can't look, yeah, but it's not like they can't look at DJ Reed and Sauce and say, "We Jets, not Fields, play man." It's not like it's going to change our ability to adjust in
I see.
5
Yeah, I know
seconds.
what you mean. Like, it's not. Yeah, like our defense, and that's the point, man. Our coverage, dude. Sauce Gardner is arguably already the best corner in the entire NFL, and DJ Reed is easily top 5, and then Michael Carter II is easily top 15. Like. We saw it with Josh Allen, right? Everyone wanted to make the excuse. They always like to make excuses for us, right? They always like to say, oh, the Jets, they won because of this. They won because of that. You couldn't make a damn excuse against that Buffalo game. We shut Josh Allen down. The pass rush was relentless and all over him. No one was open. He tried to force things and they turned into 2 interceptions, maybe almost even 3. It should have potentially been 3. So, man, I think you're right. I mean, if Simeon's the quarterback, it could be a long day for Chicago because he can't really move. He's not unmobile, but he can't really move that well. And man, our coverage is amazing. But if it is Fields, and let's just for argument's sake, say he is 100%, like Dom pointed out, you got to contain him. The biggest thing with Fields is he's a good throwing quarterback, but he ranks top of the NFL in rushing. Like that's a fact. You got to contain him. Like you said, whether it's a spy, whether it's just JJ or Carl just feasting from the outside, whatever it is, if it turns out it's Fields, you need to contain him.
Yeah, and if it's not Fields, we're going to feast all day.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
all
the
day,
Bears'
all day.
offensive
10
line is
interceptions.
the Bears' offensive line is going to be. I mean, it's when you compare it to the games we've been in and the way we've been playing, and now you're going to walk into the Bears and their offensive line. Our defensive line, I mean, I don't want to speak too confidently because it's any given Sunday and we've seen that backfire. But if it's anything the way it reads on paper, we're going to eat them alive. I mean, it's going to be ridiculous. If it's not Fields in there, you it's going to be really really ugly for them. I mean, it's going to be fun for us to watch because we're going to just tee off. And if Fields plays, I honestly, I'm telling you, we get one clean shot at him, and not even a dirty one. I'm talking about one clean, legitimate shot. He tries to scramble and he runs into Clemens. He runs into JJ. He runs into one of our guys, to Quinnen. He's going to get put down on the ground, and it's not going to tickle. There's no cortisone shot that's going to stop the amount of pain that he's going to feel when that dislocated shoulder hits that turf.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it would be crazy for him to play. Like, I mean, like we said, it was if the Jets were a losing team, then playing Zach Wilson might have made sense, but it wasn't injury. If it's injury, that's crazy. Like we're saying with Zach Wilson, we don't know with Zach Wilson, but Justin Fields is your franchise quarterback. This is your guy. Like, how do you put him at risk? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like I say, even if they were a winning team, maybe it would make sense. Like, that's it.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah, man. But all you guys out there, appreciate all your guys' comments and everything you guys are saying, all the stuff you guys are thinking. I see some of you guys like Dom saying he doesn't think the Lakin trade would happen, or sorry, Lakin Tomlinson cut would happen. It's 17. You do take an 8.5 million debt cap hit. You definitely do. But I think you have to look at it as, I mean, do you keep him as a backup? Because he's been bad, right? He has been, I felt, average at best, sometimes above average. His PFF grade is disgusting. Nate Herbig's better and AVT's better. And those are two young guys. I know I think it was Vern saying, shout out to Vern, was saying AVT maybe playing tackle. I mean, he can play left tackle. That's the point. AVT can play anything. He's shown that. He can literally play the entirety of the offensive line. But we can't forget he was having a Pro Bowl season as a guard. And he was good as a tackle, but he was having that in his rookie year. What made us think that he could be great was at guard. And he was having the beginning of this year, forget even Pro Bowl, people were saying all pro. They were saying he was having an all pro season as a guard. So I just look at it as, yes, he can play left tackle, but there's so many, top blindside tackles in the draft. You got to use your top pick on somebody. Joe Douglas saw a need with Sauce Gardner, right? That is the best corner in football, right? I think he's going to see a need at left tackle.
Yeah, I'm really pulling for Becton, but you can't rely on it. You can't count on
That's the
it.
problem.
That's the problem. I'm hoping that before the draft, he's able to come in and do a physical or something and looks great. If Becton wants to give himself the best chance of getting a starting job for the New York Jets, he can't wait until after the draft. Like, he needs to come up into headquarters weighing 350 in the best shape of his life, saying, "Look, guys, I'm ready to go," and have a clean bill of health with his knee. That's his only hope. Maybe that would sway them to say, okay, we're not going to use a number one pick on it. We'll get another development guy.
I don't know. I think, again, like you said, you got to go in zero confidence. Just
right.
what anything he
Hard to
gives
have
you
any
is just
confidence. It's hard to have
awesome.
any confidence. And I don't blame him personally. A lot of people attack the poor kid personally. I don't. It's a very bad luck.
Yeah,
It's an
he's been
awful
working
thing.
really hard. Yeah.
Awful what happened to this kid. Awful. I think healthy and in shape, he is capable of Pro Bowl level play.
Yeah,
Which is
and
why I
you're
don't want to give up on him.
talking about Mekhi Becton. The question was never on the field, right? We knew
Yeah.
that the question was never on the field. When he's on the field, he plays at an excellent level. He was on track. If you remember back in 2021, after his rookie season, NFL Network had him as the breakout candidate as one of the best blindside tackles in football. When he's on the field, we know how great he can be. And no, I would fault him if he wasn't able to get in shape. Like, that was the big thing everyone was saying, like, oh, he showed up overweight, but we saw how good a shape he got in. He came in and answered the call. He came in shape. He looked a lot healthier. Just had a freak accident this time with the other knee. Like, it's just, you have to feel bad for the kid. At the same time, you have to go in with no confidence. Whatever we get from him, we get from him. But you also have to feel bad from it. It is absolutely tragic. But Jeremy, I'd love to get your opinion on this one. So, there's obviously so many takes. And, I said myself that with Zach Wilson, his post-game comments were honestly what upset me more than his play. Robert Saleh came out and said that his post-game comments had no bearing on the decision to bench him. And even though I think they weren't happy, and they did mention that they said they were going to talk to Zach about saying the right things, how he is a confident guy, and sometimes it just comes across the wrong way. But I think that really is true for the reasons we said. It's the play. I mean, what he said wasn't great, but they want to, sit him and do this reset and prove that he's the guy. So even though I think, that they weren't thrilled about the post-game comments, I think Salah's telling the truth in that I don't think they were a major factor in the reason that they decided to bench him.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll never know. There's no way for us to guarantee. No, we can only have opinions, and I think that he's probably more than likely to be telling the truth. Like and that's what it is. But and there's always a chance that he's for whatever reasons to protect Zach or protect whatever that in their privacy of the locker room that he's lying, but and not telling us the full scoop. I don't think it really matters that much. I think what matters is that there was two reasons, the combination of the reasons, each one alone could justify benching him, right? The way he played could justify it because, hey, he needs a reset. The way he treated the media could justify it because they could say, hey, this is the culture of our locker room. And this is, this stands for every player on the team. They have to abide by a certain standard. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that the head coach showed that he's willing to make a tough decision, that he's willing to go out there and do what he believes is best for the team, short term and long term. I think he keeps both in his mind. And if I had to guess on this one, I'd say he went back, he looked at the tape and said, "Oh my God, we got to reset the kid."
I couldn't agree more. I think that was definitely definitely it. And they said a lot of we mentioned the quote Robert Saleh said before. He doubled down on a little bit more. They asked him some more stuff, and he kept saying things like, "We haven't wavered in our belief that Zach Wilson is going to be the future of this franchise." He came back again and saying it has every intent of getting him back on the football field at some point this year. That's just going to be interesting to see. I mean, if Mike White doesn't play well, maybe that becomes the question. Do we turn to Joe Flacco or do we go back to Zach Wilson? Has he reset? But I do get just scared in the back of my head. I don't know about you, but just young kid in the back of my head, I have that fear that either he has enough time or they rush him. And either way, when he comes back, it doesn't look better. That's like my horrible fear right now.
Yeah, of course. Worst thing that could happen is he's off 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, 1 week, comes back and looks like he did against New England. That's the nightmare.
Yeah. And then at that point, it's like you said, I mean, I get why Jet fans want to bring in a veteran, and it makes sense. We look at it, we pretending that Zach, again, we're not sure what he is. We have not had the best luck drafting quarterbacks. We just, unfortunately, as Jet fans, have to call a spade a spade. We haven't had that great luck. So again, we come up with that logic like with Denver. Well, the Jets have arguably the best defense in football. They have all these great offensive weapons. Denver was in the same position and they input Peyton Manning, and we know the result. So I get why people are thinking that way, and it makes sense. And it's just interesting because there's so many different avenues and options. But I think I come back to the fact, like we were talking about when we started the show, saying, I believe in Joe Douglas, man. I believe in Joe Douglas. Robert Sala's really proven himself. I think with all the tons of directions we could go in, I believe that they're going to take us in the right one. Like I do. I believe they're going to take us whatever of those 15 paths, because there's so many of them. I believe they're going to sit and they're going to delegate and they're going to really determine. And I believe that they're going to choose the right path.
I do. I certainly believe in Joe Douglas, and I've earned. My belief in Robert Saleh has grown tremendously for sure.
So we mentioned the cornerbacks before, and that's just a great one to talk about. Our cornerback room is just unbelievable, man. Like we knew it could be great. Like we were saying in the beginning of the season, Sauce and DJ, just lockdown duo. They're gonna know you're not gonna be able to throw against us. That's literally the case. Like Sauce's numbers, man, they're incredible. They are absolutely, like, for a player playing in his ninth, 10th game now, the numbers he's put up this season are insane. I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if I mentioned to you, Jeremy, but I don't know what your opinion on it is. I've always said that, Darrelle Revis is the greatest of all time now. Darrelle Revis is the GOAT. I love Darrelle Revis. But Darrelle Revis, AJ Tyrell, Jalen Ramsey, name who you want. None of them were doing what Sauce is doing in the beginning of their career. Like he's legitimately, one of you guys mentioned it in the chat, you're throwing the best receivers in the game at him and he's shutting them down. He's shutting down the best. We expected there to be a learning curve because he's playing the best receivers in the NFL. We naturally expect, yeah, there'll be a learning curve. They'll struggle a little bit. He's literally shutting them down already. My take has been, man, and I don't know what you think. And again, it's way too early, but man, I look at it. There's nobody who's ever done what Sauce is doing this quickly. And it makes me wonder, could we be getting the privilege of watching the greatest corner to ever play the game unfold right in front of us?
Well, I mean, the way he's starting his career certainly opens up the possibility. It's funny because you and me were so high on him right from the beginning, and there were some people saying, "Well, he's a rookie, so don't expect too much yet." What's up, mess? Don't expect too much yet. And I don't know about you, Harrison, but for some reason, I expected it. I
I'll
just
be
did.
honest, I
I
didn't
just
just because
expected him to be
again
better. I did.
it's Stephon Diggs. It's he's playing like it's honestly insane. Like when I think about it, I'm like
I didn't think
Sauce Gardner doesn't get enough credit for the legendary play that he's doing. Like the best way to think about it is his passer ratings allowed. Like it's crazy.
I didn't think he would shut those guys down, but I expected him to be one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL his rookie
Oh,
year.
that I did. Yeah.
Just from watching him, the college tape, the watching him at the combines. When you watch him at the combines, what that did, because I'm usually not a combine guy. I'm usually a watch on the field guy. But when you watch him at the combine, it's just somehow he just had this aura. You know what I mean? You looked at him, and you said, that guy is a superstar. Like, you looked at him, the way he talked, the way he carried himself. I said, this kid's a superstar. Just an unbelievable superstar. And then when you watched him against Jameson Williams, when you watched the tape, when he played against them, and no one stopped Jameson Williams in college. No one except Sauce Gardner.
Yeah,
So,
no,
I mean,
exactly. And that's what made that was like what was crazy to me. Like Sauce Gardner, everyone was talking about the 1,000 coverage snaps and not allowing a touchdown in college. And I love that. I thought that was amazing. But what was even more amazing to me was that his career college passer rating against was lower than if you were to throw it in the dirt, which meant statistically it was even a stupid idea to even think to throw it his way.
right,
Like
right.
that's the literal lockdown definition of a lockdown corner, a shutdown CB1. Excuse me. I figure, like we said, it's the NFL. It's the NFL level. Yeah, he's going to be good, but he's not going to be that good immediately. What's insane is he is. That's what's insane. Like his passer rating and man coverage, his passer rating allowed every week is insanity. He's literally already at an NFL level, already making it that it's stupid to even try to throw his way. He's shutting down literally the best in the game. And that's why Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, they're all great. But Justin Jefferson just looks like the next greatest of all time. So, man, I cannot wait for that Sauce and Justin Jefferson matchup next week. Like, that is going to be, that could be legendary. That could be a literally legendary matchup.
Yeah, it's gonna be one for man. I hope that they focus on it a lot and they get a lot of tape of it. Like sometimes they put a camera on things like that. So I hope whoever's covering the game, CBS or whatever, I hope they focus in on it a lot. Like I hope they focus in on that matchup and there's like good footage of them because it's absolutely it's a fascinating matchup. It's absolutely fascinating. It's like, wow, you really want to see what it's going to look like. Obviously Jefferson's a problem, right? I mean, no matter what, I'm expecting him to make plays because I've watched him enough in these last few weeks. I've been watching, obviously, Minnesota's been playing in games that impact us. They're playing our divisional, rivals and things like that. So their games have meant something to us. So in watching them play and watching this kid, it's just, oh my God, this
It's
kid
insane,
is
dude. He is,
crazy.
again, it can't be the best sentiment is I think it was it was earlier in the season. They were talking about him. They mentioned Jerry Rice, and that's just, you don't
Yeah.
hear that.
You're not
You don't
supposed to do
ever,
that.
you never hear his name ever anymore. His name being mentioned with, again, just Justin Jefferson looks unbelievable. unbelievable. Like such an amazing draft pick. And man, we still don't know what Garrett Wilson's going to be. I mean, he looks really, really good. I think he could be one of the top receivers in the NFL. He's
Well,
unbelievably
and that's
talented.
what's so frustrating is like why we need to see some other quarterbacks
It's
play.
why he's frustrated too.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, fans too, everybody's like, this kid is too good. We can't be doing this. We can't have him getting 2 targets in a game. Like it's just inexcusable. He's too good. It's like they need to find a way, and this is on LaFleur too. It can't just be on Zach. You need to find a way. You can't have these weapons just sitting there and not using them. It's just not excusable.
Without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. So
Yeah.
all you guys out there, appreciate all you guys listening in. Any questions you guys have for me and Jeremy, let us know. Any questions you guys got, any thoughts you guys have, anything you want us to answer, let it rip. Let us know what you guys are thinking. But one thing we didn't mention is Denzel Mims, man. I mean, Corey Davis coming back, that's huge for Robert Saleh to point out because he acknowledged it just the other week. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he acknowledged it just the other week with Denzel Mims. He gave him a shout out for how hard he's been working in practice, saying he's been working really well with the other coaches and they're really happy and impressed with the work that he's putting in. And we saw him play good games. We saw him, make some good plays. He's at the point now with even Corey back, and man, Corey Davis doesn't get enough credit. Him coming back is huge. They're keeping Denzel Mims active. So I think that's really big that Denzel Mims is, still going to be a part of this rotation. And how talented is that man that you got all three of those outside guys that can all play? I mean, Garrett Wilson, unbelievably elite level, Corey Davis at an outstanding level, and Denzel Mims has so much potential. You have all those guys on the outside.
It's absolutely it's a great thing. It's a great situation for us to be in. The fact that, and the box score doesn't show the other thing about Mims. He's a wonderful run blocking wide receiver. So he's a team player. He's willing to, he's not just good, he's great. He's a great blocker. And he's productive with it. He
Yeah,
helps
you
the
remember
team.
that interview, bro, when he did that block? That was great. I love that.
Mm.
Remember when they went to Denzel Mims and they asked him about that huge run block he had?
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, obviously, we don't have Brees anymore, but it was for that block for Brees. I love it. He said he was literally trying to take the dude's head off.
Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, he's that kind of guy. Like we were upset about Elijah Moore for being obnoxious and making a lot of noise. Denzel Mims is a very humble guy. We wonder why we weren't hearing a lot from him. It's because he's a humble dude. He's doing what he needs to do, putting the work in. You're not hearing him making noise, which is something you want. I mean, we look at him, he's a guy that we thought this could be a wide receiver one. He's got the height, the build, the speed, the hands, the ability. In his rookie season, he flashed a lot. I mean, Corey Davis is still a young dude, too. So this is a very young, really talented receiver core. And like you said, I think that's the frustration. Like NFL Jets FL points out here, and like you said, they're pissed. They're upset because they know the talent they have and they're being let down.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a crazy because we could go with the 4 wide receiver set that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, can
Could
you?
be
I
one of the
mean,
best in
you
the
just
league.
you have Corey Davis and Mims lined up on one side, and Garrett Wilson and Elijah lined up on the other, right? And then you
Sounds like
got
heaven.
you got a running back in the backfield, or you got a tight end helping out and chipping whoever.
Someone's getting open. It's a
Yeah, I
fact that
mean,
one
it's
of those guys
like,
is getting open.
yeah, I mean, you just have those guys just go crazy, or we don't do it a lot, but or maybe we do. I haven't noticed us do it a lot, but we were watching. Chicago does it a lot, or Chicago was doing it, where they put. We were watching tape with Dom C, where they stack 3 guys on one side. And that imagine how interesting that could be when you have like 3 guys like a Mim, whatever it is, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, and Mims on one side, and Corey Davis out alone on the other side. It's like,
Yeah.
what do you do about those 3 guys on that one side? That's scary as hell.
The Jets have done it a couple of times, not enough. So I guess you would be like, you don't see it enough. But I do remember one specific play where, interestingly enough, you would think Elijah's the main middle guy. It was Garrett on the inside, Moore next to him, and then Mims on the outside. And that just reemphasized, like we were saying before, like Robert Saleh said, yeah, Elijah Moore makes sense in the slot, but he's not just a slot guy because all of these guys can play everywhere. That's the point. Even guys like Corey Davis, Mims, and Garrett, they can play inside. That's what, like you said, just makes this offense so dangerous. So, yeah, man, I think they need to do that. I really do. I think we need to get more of our, offensive weapons on the field at the same time. Whether that's, heck, 4 receiver sets, like you said, with those 4 guys, I love that. Give me that. If those 4 guys are out there, it's not possible that one of them isn't getting open. That's just not possible. Someone's getting open.
Hmm. And then, all this talk of these good wide receivers, and there's this guy named Berrios who is really solid in doing, like, he's really good at executing. He is exactly where he's supposed to be in every single play. So they could put him in, when he comes into that game, that's one guy that's guaranteed is going to be in the exact spot he's supposed to be. That's what he brings. And he's super fast and explosive. Love him on the sweeps. He's dangerous on those sweeps.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, man. In fact, Berrios is so underrated that honestly, remember when the Elijah Moore whole situation first started, I was looking at it and I was like, well, Moore is pretty pissed because he's not playing outside because at the time it was Corey Davis and Garrett Wilson, but Braxton Berrios was getting more snaps in the slot. Like that was a fact. We were seeing Berrios more, and I was thinking about it. And I'm like, you know what? Elijah Moore, he's running his mouth again. He's got a lot of potential. Don't get me wrong. Talent wise is through the roof. But we've seen a lot of wide receivers with a lot of talent. When they're too big a headache, the team doesn't want anything to do with them. Antonio Brown's, doesn't matter how good they are. I mean, he's running his mouth, saying he wants a trade, causing problems in the locker room. I'm just thinking about it like, well, they like Braxton Berrios. There's no more of a team first guy than Braxton Berrios, right? Like he is the epitome of everything that Elijah Moore wasn't being. Braxton Berrios, team first guy, putting everything on his back, do whatever you ask him to do. You want him in the return game? He's in the return game. Like he is literally the do whatever you ask, whatever is needed from him. So I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that Elijah Moore is becoming part of it again. But I honestly didn't mind if they were going to use Berrios more in the slot, over Moore. If they were going to use Berrios, more often. And that was honestly because, again, I feel like, now he is a talented guy. He's played well. He has done good things. Yes, obviously Elijah Moore has a higher ceiling, but Berrios just, man, he is the epitome of the locker room culture guy that you want, which a lot of people were worried, the fear with Elijah Moore was, is he that cancer in the locker room?
No. Yeah. And hopefully he's not. I know he's been working really hard, Elijah Moore. He's been working really hard. He's been perfect, as from everything we hear. He's been a Boy Scout since he got back. So
because he's getting his targets.
Yeah, let's hope he keeps that up and everything. And he worked his way back. I think it's a great opportunity for him this week. I really do.
I agree, man. I agree. And he will get opportunities. That's what, Robert Saleh was saying, that, again, he's not only going to be in the slot, but that's where he thrives. We're seeing him more now. He's definitely playing more than Berrios is. So that's a really quality receiver room. Like we said, where you got Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis, and Denzel Mims on the outside. You got Elijah Moore in the slot with Berrios. That's a lot of talent. That is a lot of talent. So shout out to Vern. Vern points out we need a stud tight end. Ruckert needs to start showing some flashes as well. Thing is, Ruckert isn't getting opportunities. That's the thing. He's just not getting opportunities to potentially show flashes. But stud tight end, man, I don't know about you, but I really thought Tyler Conklin was going to be it. Man, bringing in Tyler Conklin, I'm like, this is a guy that, only last year got his first opportunity to start. Before last year, he didn't really get that opportunity. And then last year, he had an outstanding season, put up really good yardage. I really thought he was going to be the guy. And he's flashed. We've had games where he had that 97-yard, 2-touchdown game. But he hasn't consistently been that stud tight end, which I kind of thought he would be.
Well, I mean, he hasn't gotten, part of that could be Zach. Unfortunately, he doesn't get through the progressions, and like we don't call a game where the tight end is number one progression, right? And like the number one target, maybe. But when we need Conklin, he's there. Like in the, when you watch those fourth quarter drives and everything, like he's there when we really need him to be, when we want to add that tight end to the passing game. But I think the reason Ruckert's not active, and I think the reason you don't see a lot of Conklin might just be the way we're running this offense, and especially with the injuries to the offensive line, we're utilizing the tight end for their blocking. And that makes sense that Ruckert wouldn't be in there because he's behind two veteran tight ends with a lot of experience that are known to be very physical, good blocking tight ends. And there's, in the in the minds of the Jets, why rush the kid? Why not develop him? Right? We have two tight ends that are perfectly capable of, of run blocking, and that's how, and pass blocking, and that's how we use them right now. We're not using them too much in the passing game, so I wouldn't be worried about Ruckert. I think it's just simply they're just having a year of development for him. They're just bringing him in slowly, and you'll see a little bit more of him probably in the future. And hopefully one day he'll flourish into a great player. But I wouldn't doubt or panic about his potential to be a great tight end. I think he just happens to be in a system that is stacked with the skill set that he brings, and they already are stacked with that in two veteran tight ends.
No, that's a really good point. I was actually with the Ruckert part. I was literally thinking the same thing. That
Yeah.
this is the guy you drafted to be the future at tight end. Like with most guys, you draft him later on. Most guys take a redshirt year. You don't need to throw him out because you have so much talent. Again, I think it could be a lot of Zach. It could be the tight ends aren't being utilized like they should be. But I really expected Tyler Conklin to be a breakout guy. And CJ Uzama, like you just said, he's also a very good option too. He was a very good receiving option for the Bengals. He's a quality guy that usually is good for about 500 yards a season, which is good. And they're
Yeah.
both quality blockers, like you said. So you're not seeing Jeremy Ruckert because you don't need him. But he has a lot of promise. He's a guy that you saw at Ohio State. He was a blocker. He was used mainly as a blocker. He's a really good block, which with most tight ends coming into the league now, that's the big thing. You lost that a lot. You know what I mean? Like you don't see really good blocking tight ends anymore. They're more just receivers. Here's a guy that was mainly used as a blocker, and he flashed a lot as a wide receiver. Like I can't remember that game. It was the bowl game. Remember where he made that ridiculous one-handed catch in the end zone? Like
Yeah.
he's really talented. He's just not being used in the receiving game, and he's already proven a good blocker. So man, he's the future. He's definitely the future at tight end. But Uzama's playing well, and Uzama is a leader in that locker room. And Conklin is the main tight end. So, yeah, you're just not seeing Ruckert as much, honestly.
No.
Yeah, man. But yeah, like NFL Jets, NY Jets FL points out, LaFleur in the offense could flourish with competent QB play. That's what we're talking about, right? That's what we're asking for. We're not asking Mike White to come in and be the savior. We've literally seen over these weeks that with when again, we're not saying Zach Wilson is a game manager, but with game managing smart football, you can win because the defense is playing at a top level. So I think you nailed it the most when you said Mike White needs to play mistake-free football. But I don't know, man. I don't want to get too excited, but I think about those things we were talking about before. There's still potential. It's a guy that, unlike guys like Joe Flacco at the end of their career, there's still potential in what could Mike White be.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We definitely he definitely didn't get enough playing time or enough of a sample for us to sit there and start setting limitations on what he could accomplish, because stranger things that have happened in the NFL with quarterbacks, where people didn't have high ceilings for guys that came in and just kept blowing people away with what they could do.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like you said, fifth round pick, it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously, we see more top quarterbacks pan out, but it doesn't mean later round quarterbacks don't. And it's important, like we said, to point out that he's only played 4 games. It's like he's basically a rookie playing at the beginning of his career. And like Jess Metz Mess points out, so Jess Metz says, yeah, because, his last game was one of the worst QP games. It was awful. That game against, I don't know if you're talking about Zach or if you're talking about Mike White's last game, but Mike White had a really, really bad game when he played Buffalo. It was an atrocious game. But like we talked about, the Buffalo and New England recently, obviously New England, ever since Belichick's been there, they always seem to have our number. They always seem to have our number. We did really well against Buffalo last time we played them. Our defense played really well, but there's been times in the past, he says White, yeah, but there's times in the past, with Mike White, if you take that Buffalo game out, again, because it's a small sample size, like we said, he's only played 4 games ever. It's not the first time that Buffalo is, played really well against us, and it's not the first time New England. Look at what has happened with Zach Wilson. right? Zach Wilson's worst games, like we said, were against New England. So I think it's interesting, like we talked about earlier, that if you take both of those games out, there is promising stuff there. There's promising stuff from a young kid. And that's the point. Some people like they look at the 8 interceptions and they turn that into 40 interceptions a season. But that's the point. We look at that Buffalo game, he did not play well. He had an atrocious game. That being the case, maybe it was, again, Buffalo dominating and him struggling trying to make something happen. Same thing with that New England game. So we take those out. He now has 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He now has over 100 rating in each game. Like his completion percentages are high. Like it's promising.
At the very least, I feel like he is a functional backup quarterback. Like worst case scenario, a good backup quarterback for any team to have in case, that can keep your team alive if your starter goes down for a few games during the year.
Yeah, if you saw Jets mess, that one cracked me up. Does Lee play? Can we throw
No,
Lee back there? Is he suit up?
Lee is just known as the answer. So the answer is always Lee Cravat. So when we need to find another quarterback, what's the answer? Lee Cravat. Any trivia question? What's the answer? Lee Cravat. Jets mess decided that.
That's funny, man. That's funny. So shout out to all you guys in the comments. Again, let us know what you're thinking. Let us know your thoughts. So Trin the Great says Mike White is going to be chewed up by the Bears secondary. They won't pick him, but they'll be there for the big plays. If this team wins, it's because Chicago isn't stopping the run. The Bears don't have a great secondary. That's the thing. They do not have a great secondary at all. And that was the reason we wanted to see, a lot of people were saying they wanted to see Zach Wilson play this game because we've seen what he did against top secondaries. This would be big if he had another bad game against a worse secondary. Well, then some things are being a little more answered. So this is not a great secondary. And again, Mike White, you look at the games he's played, he just has to be, like we talked about earlier, take what the defense gives him. He just has to play smart football, not make mistakes. He's got a lot of weapons on this offense. He just has to, again, not make mistakes and take what the defense gives him. So Jets mess adds his Fields playing. We were just talking about that before. We honestly don't know, right? He's listed as questionable. We were joking before about the conflicting reports, right? Some saying he's got a dislocated shoulder, to some saying it's just bruised up, to some saying it's day by day. We don't know, but like Jeremy was saying, if you want to point it out again, I think you made an outstanding point that I think it'd be stupid to even play Fields, even if he's just, not as bad as they're making it out to be, because this is their franchise quarterback and they don't have a chance to win.
They don't have a chance for the playoffs.
Well, yeah, they don't have a chance for the playoffs.
Realistically, I mean, technically they could run the table and go 10-7, but if they think that, they're stupid. Because even with Justin playing great, they're still losing. So think of how bad their defense must be. That when you look at the amount of points they've been scoring and how Justin's been playing, they're still losing. So I expect us to be fine, even with Mike White.
Yeah, and like Vern points out, he said Fields personally even said AC joint. It's crazy, man. It's like that's scary. Like your franchise quarterback, I can't imagine. Like they're hearing these the fans. They're hearing these conflicting reports of what's wrong with him. To he has a dislocated shoulder and he's going to be out for the year. To it's sprained to the point where it's not that bad and he's day by day. To where he's saying AC joint. It's like, which means potentially dislocated or at worst sprained. You don't know. It's like, but like you said, it doesn't make sense to play him. And if it is Trevor Siemian, man, we can really do some damage there, man. I mean, Trevor Siemian, he's not Justin Fields. So, man, our defense, the way they've been playing, I said it before. I mean, you think shutout? You think if Trevor Siemian's the quarterback, we could potentially shut out the Bears? And I'm not saying our offense puts up huge points, but maybe it's 9-0. Do you think we shut them out?
I don't know if we shut them out. I mean, it's possible, but like even teams with really like that are really not prepared. I mean, even with the way Zach played on Sunday, which is as bad as I've seen an NFL quarterback play, we, that game was so atrocious. We still scored 3 points. So, I don't think it matters. I mean, I think the bottom line is, unless it's special teams or something like a freak play. Anything can always happen in football, right? I mean, it's not like he's not. I mean, he's still an NFL quarterback. He's still a guy who can drop back, and if somebody could break, miss tackles, whatever. I mean, something could always happen in football. But I mean, I think the bottom line is that would take it would take an unexpected type of play, and realistically, we're gonna be in control of that game. Our defense should be fine, right? We're gonna be dominant in that game. They're not gonna score a lot of points. To me, if we lose the game, it'll be because of mistakes. Like we'd just have to make mistakes. Otherwise, I don't see how or why we would lose that game. We should be able to control their offense. We should be able to have our way with them. Specifically, if Fields doesn't play, and even if Fields plays, it shouldn't be that good. We still could do our job. You seal the edge, set the edge, play zone so you're watching him, so you're not turning your back on him. Maybe you have some spy him. The linebacker, somebody's responsible for him. You contain him. They've got very little else going for them. There's no excuse to allow these guys to score too many on us. I think those first couple of games where the Bears put up a lot, the other teams weren't prepared because Justin Fields wasn't doing it up until this point in his career. They were trying to make him a pocket passer. They were using the run, but not like this. I think that they pulled the trigger. They said, enough of this. We're going to go back to your Ohio State days. You're going to do one progression, and if it's not there, take off. And that's what we're seeing him do.
Yeah, and I love how you put that out, because if you remember, that was my big knock on Justin Fields with them, that it was either that or what I called built-in like fake progressions, where they had fail safes built into the offense. And Clemson kind of had the same thing as well. That's why I loved Zach so much. But again, we're not, which is why the reset makes the most sense. All those things we loved about him, we're not seeing. So Vern points out Simeon revenge game. I don't think so with our defense, man. I mean, anything's possible, like you said, Jeremy. Anything is possible, but our defense, man, you said it in that game. We don't even want to talk about how pathetic the numbers were. You guys know how many yards we had in the second half. You know how bad it was. With how bad it was, we were still in that game because of our defense. Our defense has consistently kept us in games against the best teams in football, like the Buffalo Bills, to the point where we were able to come in and win that game. Our defense keeps us in the game with anybody. So, man, Chicago does not have that great a defense. All we have to do is enough. Like we said, that's really it. They just have to do enough, because I don't think so, Vern, man. I think that our defense is going to have, if it's Simeon, man, that pass rush is going to be relentless. They're going to be all over him. No one's going to be open. We saw Josh Allen almost threw 3 interceptions against us. How many is Simeon going to throw?
I mean, if our defensive line just plays like our defensive line, it's just their offensive line just isn't that good.
It's not. No, it's definitely
people,
not.
it hasn't really.
That's why Fields has so many rushing yards.
I feel like it hasn't really sunk in for Jet fans because we're not used to it. Our defensive line is absolutely insane. It's real. This is real. It's really happening. We're going to eat them alive. It's hard to imagine a scenario we're not completely just terrorizing their quarterback. And if Fields doesn't play, like you're saying, we're going to terrorize this kid, Simeon. Like, terrorize him. It's going to be all you're almost going to feel sorry for him.
Oh, I see Vern saying all the way around. So he's agreeing with us. Vern saying he's agreeing with us. He meant that it's a shutout and the Bears don't win. I think so, man. I think it's definitely, it's going to be big. It's going to be really big, but we have to win this game. Like, the way I look at it is, out of the next 7 games we're playing, the Chicago Bears are arguably our easiest opponent of all of them when you look at their defense and all of that. So if that's the case, you really, again, we're a team that is right in the playoffs, right? We're in the bottom spot of the playoffs. We really need to win to beating the Chicago Bears to be able to say we can continue to make this run. I don't know if you agree, Jeremy, but I feel like we have a lot of good games ahead of us, but I feel like definitely the Chicago Bear game, especially it's a home game, should be one of the easier of the next 7 games.
Well, it's the most winnable game we have left.
Yeah, most winnable is probably
just no question. I mean, and it doesn't mean we can overlook them. It doesn't mean we're automatically going to win. It just means, if on paper or reality, if you're a football fan and you've been watching and you look at these games that are remaining, it's the most winnable game left on the schedule. It just is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just clear as day that it is. I mean, they practically, I mean, even if Justin plays, he's hurt. He's still hurt. He's still going to feel it every time he's hit. It's still going to be on in his mind. It's still going to mentally be there. And then they had a fire sale. They got rid of their two best defensive players. I think Kyler Gordon is still banged up. Their safety is still banged up. So
Is
some
yeah.
of their better, right, Brisker. I think Brisker is still banged up. I don't even know if he's going to play. So their rookies are banged up. I mean, it's just our most winnable game. It's just that simple. And that's why we can't afford to lose it. We really can't look past them. We have to go and take care of business. I think our team is pissed. I think they're angry. I think they're very competitive young men. I think they take losing very personally. And I think you're going to see a very angry and a very focused Jets team. I really believe that.
No, I agree, man. I completely agree. And I think you're right because we saw how angry the defense was in that Patriot game. Because even Saw said it like they were convinced, we were convinced we're going to overtime. Like we were all convinced,
Yeah.
okay, this has been like there's no words to describe how bad this offensive performance has been, but at least we're going to overtime. At least the defense kept us in this. Man, that kick return was like it was the gut punch of like the accumulation of what that game was. But they're pissed. Like you said, they're 100% pissed. They really thought it was going to overtime. And if they go back, they can see all these weeks with the Patriots, the Bills, every game they played. DJ Reed said it just a few weeks ago. They asked him, and he said, I think we're the best defense in the NFL. And you know what? Over for the whole season, you could definitely make that argument. But over the last 6 weeks, it's actually an easy argument to make. Over the last 6 weeks, the Jets definitely have if not the best defense in the NFL, top three defense in the NFL. Like we are absolutely amazing. And you mentioned it. It starts with that pass rush, which is absolutely relentless with all of those guys feasting and the coverage. Like you're consistently getting to the quarterback. You're stopping the running game. You're shutting down everyone in coverage. That's it. What
Yeah.
else do you have to do as a defense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I would just be really, really shocked if it didn't go really well for us. Like, I'd be really shocked if it didn't go really well.
I agree, man. I
So,
agree. But like you said, we gotta win. It's a big one because, like you said, this is arguably the most winnable of the next 7 games, and we're in the playoffs right now. We have to win to stay in. We're in the playoffs. We only have 7 games left. You even mentioned we could technically still take the division if we swing this right and everything goes in our way. Technically, we could still be first in the AFC East. It's still possible. So this is a really big defining game for what can this team be with potentially making a playoff run.
yeah.
Without a doubt, man. So I don't know if you guys have any last questions. Me and Jeremy, it's been awesome being here with you guys. Almost been 3 hours. We love chatting with you guys. Love talking to you guys all about them Jets. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. I don't know, Jeremy, you had any last thoughts or any final thoughts you wanted to share with the people?
Just, hang in there. And remember, I want everybody to remember one thing. We were 2-14 2 years ago. We were 4-13 last year. With everything that's gone on, with all this yelling and screaming, the drama, the pain, the yelling, the this, the that, the Zach Wilson, the blah, the this, Mike LaFleur, blah, with all of it, we are about to go 7-4. We're 6-4. We're in the playoff hunt. We have a franchise changing running back who's going to come back next year. We have one of the best offensive linemen in football. He can play any position coming back next year. We're doing all this without them now. We have the best cornerback, like easily what's looking like to be a Hall of Fame cornerback. Let's just say that. We have incredible young studs at the wide receiver position. The future looks great for us. We have some problems. There are some things that have to be worked out. But don't forget where we were 2 years ago, where we were even a year ago, and where we are right now. We are sitting here amidst a playoff run ahead of schedule in our rebuild, and we have special, special players. This is a time to be happy if you're a Jets fan.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm happy. And we should be, like you said. I mean, if it weren't for Zach Wilson's absolutely atrocious play, we would have came out of that game being okay. We're 6-4. We're right on the bubble. We're right there. The playoffs are still in reach. This is a big deal. Like we're in the playoffs right now, which we haven't been in 12 years. The culture change is happening, man. And you mentioned just 2 years ago, that's when Joe Douglas was handed the keys, right? Before that, it was still Gase and the mismanagement, and the Johnsons still had a say. Ever since for 2 years ago, Joe Douglas was given the keys to this car. They let him do what he wanted to do. And look at how far we've come, man. Like you said, it's look at how far we've come in these 2 years. Look at how talented our team has become. So it kind of gives us, faith in the fact that they've built such an amazing team that, let's just say, worst case, Zach Wilson, worst case isn't the answer. I feel confident in these guys to find the answer. I do.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And we're coming. We're coming. That's the point. We're here. We're in the playoffs now. We're a team to contend with anybody. Our time is now, man. We're here.
Our time is now.
It is. It is. Like
And
Vern says, trust the process.
trust. I mean, the way I feel about it is, the way I feel about it is, um, like I was just saying, I haven't felt this way in years. I've been watching. I've been a fan for 40 years. I haven't felt this way in a really long time. Probably since when Rex Ryan took over. And I have
Yes.
even a
Yeah.
better feeling than that because the difference was Rex Ryan couldn't draft, so he was playing. He was a dead man walking as far as the talent was concerned. We're not. We still have Joe Douglas. We're still adding talent. He's still going to be drafting for us. This is going to continue. This is the biggest chance we've ever had to be a significant, relevant team for a long period of time, and I am going to enjoy every second of it.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. So, just last thing quick, I'll point out Jets Mets mess ass who's me playing on the right side of the O line this week. We're hoping Nate Herbig will be back
Lee
and he's healthy.
Cravat.
Yeah, Lee Cravat, exactly, to be Lee Cravat. But we're hoping Nate Herbig, they said he's rolling and he's good to go. So that's a big upgrade at right guard. Cedric Aboyhe is not a good thing at right tackle, but we will have Max Mitchell or George Fant back soon. And then one of them next to Nate Herbig, that's going to make that a special side. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate you guys listening to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. If you haven't, if you could please subscribe to the channel, you could do so by clicking on the logo in the bottom corner of the screen as well. It'd be greatly, greatly appreciated. Also, if you enjoy what me and Jeremy are talking about, if you could hit the like button, that'd be greatly appreciated as well. As you guys may or may not know, I do my Monday show every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Do my live show then. It's an awesome time. We talk all about the Jets, get into everything. Just like here, I throw your guys' comments up. We talk about what you guys are thinking, your thoughts. I love the conversations we have. Again, I really appreciate all you guys. I love you guys, my Jets family. Love you guys tuning in. Love interacting with you guys, hearing your guys' takes. You guys make me laugh. We have an awesome, awesome time. Absolutely love it. So again, Mondays, that's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please tune in. I'll be bringing you stuff out as well throughout the week. Again, if you haven't subscribed, if you could please do so as well, that'd be greatly appreciated. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for being here for the podcast. Hope you guys have a great, great weekend. And you know what? Let's win this Sunday, right? Let's beat those Chicago Bears. Let's go Jets.
7-4, baby.
7-4, baby. Let's do it.
Jets.